line coming in. The people were a little bit after 5:30, but we're going to allow a few more minutes for them to come in. So be patient. We'll get started here shortly. Off. I would greatly appreciate that. And if you would join us now for the pledge and for the invocation, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening with thanksgiving to you for being able to be citizens here in this nation and in this beautiful county. We are thankful to you for your many mercies. Lord, we ask your blessing on this meeting this evening. We're thankful that we can come and join together as citizens and to learn. We pray, Lord, that we would have open minds to learn that which is out there to be had. Lord, we pray that we would treat one another with kindness, with respect, and integrity. We pray, Lord, that through this meeting, we would have a better understanding of those things that are of a concern to us, and that we would be able to put some of those concerns to rest. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Andrew. Well, we did roll call, please. Roll call. Chairman Kevin Day. Present. Commissioner Lucas F. Present. Commissioner Bill Kanda.
Present.
Board of County Commissioner Admin Mike Chester present. And the lawyer, please. Dan Slater, attorney. Present. Okay, a couple of informational items here to begin with. The agenda had stated at 5:30 to 7:30. We have made that second time 8:30. So it will go from 5:30 here to 8:30. We did not have a place on this agenda initially for public comment. That will be allowed at the end of this meeting, time permitting. After each one of our presenters presents, there will be a time for questions or comments at that time. Depending on the time frame for that is how long we allow that for each speaker. The questions and the comments will be limited to 1 minute so that we have adequate time to try to accommodate everyone. There are also written comment cards. I believe most of you were aware of that when you came and checked in. If there's not enough time for everyone to speak, or you would like your comments, written comments entered into the record, then please fill those out and turn those in before you leave here tonight. That is pretty much the informational items that I have here. At this time, then I will turn it over to Commissioner Kanda, and he will introduce some of the speakers here tonight.
Thank you, Kevin. Can you hear me, guys? Okay, this microphone and another microphone will be given to everybody who speaks. So you'll be able to hear every question. We want everybody to feel free to ask that question. First of all, I want to make a statement, bar none. The most sacred thing we have in this country is our vote and the security thereof that and the integrity of that vote. I think we all can agree on it. We can be in agreement. Okay, the next question I have is, or the statement I'll make is, we have probably the best election system in the county today. Our process is by bar none secure and valid in the process that we have. No question. However, I'm going to ask a show of hands on, well, not yet. However, a little background on me. I came out of the super secret classified world for many years. I was 2 heartbeats away from the President of the United States in a lot of the mission stuff that we were doing, literally. And so I know a lot of technology and capabilities that I know most people don't, and that's fair. But it's valid, and that's why we have congressmen that are great, and that they're supposed to keep a rein on those kinds of things. But because of my knowledge, I am leery of any electronic system that's connected to the internet. That's just a given. Now, I don't know how much to be worried. I don't know whether Dominion's good or bad. Literally, I'm afraid of it. I think I've seen enough that I am comfortable with saying it's not the right machine, but maybe not. And maybe there are others. So how many people here tonight think we don't have a problem? Raise your hand that we don't have an issue. 1, couple, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many people think we have a problem or could have a problem? All right. All right. Now, the reason I ask that, we want to hear from the people that think we don't have a problem. I want a matter of fact, Mark Cook is our first speaker, and he's going to be the guy. He is the technical guy. The purpose of this meeting is for us commissioners to understand before we make a decision that we're going to All right, let's do a hand count and a paper ballot and have it ready for the general election this year, right now. Don't know I can say that yet. At all. We don't have enough facts. It's about facts, not rumor, not guesses, not people that don't understand that think they know. We want everybody to get educated well enough to understand the facts. And we've got the right guy here, Mark Cook. I'll give you his quick little bio. He's an IT specialist in Lakewood, Colorado. Mark, along with Sean Smith, coached Elbert County clerk and recorder Dallas Schroeder on making a forensic copy of the Elbert County 22 election database. Cook has become a national resource for investigating the more technical aspects of the election system, and he's most well known for assisting Sheriff Darley of rural county, Perre County, Michigan. So, as a matter of fact, tonight we had a speaker that wasn't going to come from Georgia. He's not going to be able to make it. And there are others that are going to be online. We have 8 county commissioners in the state online. Several of them want to ask questions. Several want to make a statement to us as well as other people that are able to answer questions. And those people are Mike Lindell, you know him if you ever will, or Blanket, or some Mice. But more importantly, here he's well known founder of that Minnesota-based pillow, my pillow, but rapidly grew revenues from $3 million to $110 million in 2010 to 2022. And by 2018, he'd grown to over $300 million business. Waves of investigations and bad press followed Lindell's early support of Donald Trump in 2016, but his criticism of the 2020 presidential election caused a wide range of cancellations by media outlets, Fox Stories, and banks, and even American Express. Twitter also canceled the My Pillow Company account around early 2021. But regardless, the Lindell Offense Fund Incorporated supports numerous investigations and lawsuits throughout the nation. One of the most significant was Lake's first response because it revealed a trove of evidence and vulnerabilities with the Dominion in particular. I think that Mark will be able to answer some of those questions. A few examples are accessible. Anyway, I wanted to point out he's online. David Clements is also online and available to ask questions. He's a former New Mexico prosecutor and law professor at New Mexico State University. Prior to teaching, he twice earned New Mexico's Prosecutor of the Year award. As a law professor, he earned the New Mexico University's teaching award. Now, what he's doing now, he's well known for his predominance in national publications and very unusual election results. As a result, to building a network of election researchers, he began speaking on his findings across the U.S. wherever he was called. He also produced and narrated it, so he is responsible for a lot of the documentaries that are available. Also, Joe Oltmann, who was here last week, was it last week? He was going to be here in person. He was in Guatemala, took an early flight to get here on time, and then they found a tornado out in Denver, and they got diverted to the Springs. If he wanted to get out, but they wouldn't let him out in the Springs, that would have been easy. So he made him fly back, but they wouldn't take off. So he's going to get there, and he's going to join us online. You'll be able to ask questions about him. Also, we have online Seth Ketchel, who's a retired U.S. Army captain from Fort Worth. Ketchel became well known for statistical analysis of elections and has a knack for shifting through vast amounts of data and finding a lot of abnormal things on all sides, whether it's Dominion or whatever. So those are people that are well, and by the way, a lot of it is all volunteer on their part and their own money doing it. And I think that's it for now. So the point is, we want to take the next steps. Tonight, the best thing we can do is agree to what we commissioners would like to see, gathering that data, taking the next step and say, based on that, what are some of the machines that could be used or not? How do the hand counts occur? What systems for hand counts or ballots? Process for the election? All that has to be worked out. This isn't something we're just going to make a knee-jerk reaction and do. There are many counts, and like you heard tonight, There are 8 of them online now because they heard about this and they are doing similar things in their counties want to continue along with this. So with that, Mark, come on up and we'll let him, he wants to hear, how he wants to hear it, he'll drive most of the show. We've got Andrew Zeller, which is, where did he go? There he is. He's got the microphone. The way we'll do this, he's gonna make a quick introduction, a little, bit of a talk of what he's got. And then it's questions and answers, how we get forward, or statements that you want to make. And he's willing to answer them, and we're gonna take as much time as we need. That's why we decided to move the time a little bit further out. And of course, he'll be around questions later, or anybody that's online. So with that, here you go, Mark. Oh, and Andrew will control that. He'll give the mic that he's got at that end of the table. Either a commissioner, if we got a question, or a good attorney here for an answer perhaps, or anybody else, and he'll reach out there and get that for as far back as possible so everybody can be heard.
Did you bring the pizza in?
All right, thanks all. So here, I'll stand up for a few, at least to introduce myself and try to be somewhat polite here. And then I'm gonna sit down because I've got my laptop here and I wanna be able to use it to show you some things. And forgive me for showing up last minute. I didn't even know I was gonna be here up until a couple of days ago when I was in Georgia, actually in Fulton County. And I got a phone call and the phone call went like this: how quickly can you get to Colorado and can you be there Wednesday night? So I happened to be flying back to Colorado for a couple of days to take care of business, home stuff. I'm from Colorado, born and raised. And so I came back anyway. I was up in the Lakewood area. And so it kind of worked out. I was going to leave tonight, but I pushed my flight by 1 day so I could be here for you guys. So okay, I'm gonna give you an introduction. Who is this guy standing in front of you? I was born in Denver, ended up moving up to Evergreen, and pretty much grew up in Evergreen. I went to CU Boulder for a semester. My dad, unfortunately, was an alcoholic, passed away in my first semester of college. I moved back home to help at home, back to Evergreen, and then I ended up going to Colorado School of Mines. And I was there at Mines for like 10 years, studying a lot of engineering. Started my business when I was 13 years old. Started programming computers when I was 10 years old, back in the CompuServe and Prodigy days. And like I said, born and raised in Colorado, love Colorado. Colorado has seemed to have changed a little bit, though, starting about 20 years. It doesn't seem to be the same state that it once was. Get a little feedback. Can you turn the volume down just a little bit? Awesome, thank you. So I have been running an IT company for 30 plus years. I also do some mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. I really like automotive performance. I like mentoring and helping, guide our younger generation so they can be self-sufficient, start their own businesses, and not be dependent on anyone or anything. Because that's what I think all this is about. My whole family's kind of entrepreneurs, and I just grew up with that mindset. So having a normal job just never really worked out for me. I didn't always think that that's the way you go anyway. I was a busboy for a little bit. I like doing my own thing. It turns out when you have a skill, that's a computer skill, and back then it started to become pretty useful. When my dad passed away, my mom was a single mom trying to raise 2 kids. And I realized how bad a situation it was. So we didn't have money for heat. We had one room in our house that we had heat, and that was because it had a fireplace, and our neighbors gave us firewood to keep that room warm. So that was the heat room, and everything else was freezing. I remember crawling around as a little kid underneath cabinets, wrapping pipes with heat tape, because the only electricity we used was just to keep the heat tape power, so our pipes didn't freeze. And I did not want, as a little kid, I didn't want to be a burden on my mom. So what I did is I tried to figure out, how can I become self-sufficient? How can I take that burden off mom? I started thinking of ways I could use my talents as writing software to do so. So that's kind of what drove me to start, a business doing IT stuff. I mowed lawns and watered lawns too, as every kid I think does that. But then I started writing software. I started selling subscriptions to the software, and I'm sure my mom was wondering why her 13-year-old kid was getting checks in the mail. from all these strangers across the country. But it wasn't anything bad, so that's good. So that's my background. Now, let's fast forward. 2020 election happens. I went around Colorado, I did lots of campaigning, just as a citizen. I saw what was going on in Colorado. And when I watched election night, which I think a lot of people here did, I did not see anything that looked normal. I saw votes split. I saw votes go down, which doesn't happen when you're counting votes. Votes never go down. But I saw that with my own eyes on the TV screen. And then, of course, at 3 o'clock in the morning, everything stops, and, everything was going a certain trajectory. Everything stops, starts back up again, and all of a sudden the trajectory changes. And right then I started thinking, wait a minute, how does our whole voting system work? What happens when you put your ballot in the machine from that point to where it shows up on the TV screen that we're watching on election night? What are the pathways? Because I'm trying to think, how did this trend change all of a sudden? And what would cause counting to stop through an entire country? How could that possibly happen? And I'm a complex systems guy. I like to try to figure out how things work. I don't know if my mom really appreciated that, because I got my first tool set, and of course I took everything I could apart in the house to try to, because I was curious how it all worked. Well, that's just my mentality. So I'm sitting here trying to take apart our election system, trying to figure out, well, how does this whole thing work? Because it didn't seem like the output matched the input to me. And that was very curious to me. So, week after the election, I got asked to go out to DC and work with some people to figure out what happened with the election. Now, I grew up in Evergreen. Obviously, it's a small mountain town, kind of like this. This is smaller. I like this better. Evergreen got too big for me. But I don't like big cities. I don't do big cities. I had never been on a subway before. And I hate politics. And I'm not a fan of politicians either, turns out. So I didn't want to go to DC, but I really wanted to know what was going on. Because how can you have half the country say there's no problem, and the other half of the country says the first half is all crazy? Both of those polar opposites could not be true. So I wanted to get to the truth. I knew I couldn't trust the media. I mean, I was an avid CNN watcher for most of my life, up until I realized at some point they started telling me what to think instead of just giving me the news, and that made me very uncomfortable. And I was also Democrat for most of my life. And, then I realized, well, maybe I'm not Democrat anymore, because I'm not aligning with this anymore. And it turns out it changed. I wasn't me. And I thought, well, maybe I'm supposed to be Republican. So I switched parties and thought that would solve the problem. I switched from CNN to Fox and thought that would solve the problem. No, same problem, just on the other side, right? The same propaganda, just opposite. And so that made me very uncomfortable. I'm a policy-based voter. I want to find the truth. That's what I want to hunt for, is the truth. This is not a Democrat or Republican thing. And now that I've been through this for a few years, I see the game that's being played on all of us. We are being played. All of us are. Democrats, Republicans, black and white, gay and straight, you name it. Every way these people can get us to attack each other and divide us, it's being done. Maybe turn the volume down just a little bit on the mic. I think that's this guy over here. Is there another mic that's on? If there's one on.
Turn that. That's it.
Yeah. He is the technical guy. There we go. Okay, so we should done feedback. Okay, cool. That's called feedback. And actually, that's kind of funny that happened, because I'm going to tell you about feedback. Because feedback is how, a little more volume. This one. We good?
Keep it close now.
I'll keep it close. Okay. Okay. So feedback's important. So here's what was going on. Okay. I'm speaking here. That speaker is amplifying the voice. That microphone over there was picking the amplified voice up, and it was re-amplifying it again. So it ended up in a feedback loop, and it went out of control. And that's why the frequency kept going up and you heard the squealing. So there's also a feedback loop happening in our election system that I'm going to go over with you. I didn't want to find all this stuff. I seriously did. That it's the scariest thing to think that our elections are not what we are told that they are. I never even questioned elections. I just assumed they work exactly like they're supposed to. It wasn't even a thought in my mind that maybe it doesn't, or maybe someone could manipulate it. Also, good people don't see evil. That's another problem. That's why good people are easy victims. And if there are bad guys out there, which we all know there's bad guys out there, right? And bad girls, I'll be equal opportunity here, okay? There's bad people out there, and bad people usually take advantage of good people. And, you know, sometimes they con them. Who knows what con means in conning? Anyone know? Confidence, thank you. Con in con man stands for confidence. It's confidence. So they build your confidence, and then they take advantage of you. And as I'm going through, I have dove into that election a week after, and I have done nothing but dig into all of our election processes, all of our systems, all across the country, county by county by county, state by state. And what I have seen, I cannot unsee. We have a massive problem. I didn't want there to be one, because it was very frightening. I'd rather not be frightened. I'd rather everything be fine, but unfortunately, that's not where we're at. The good news is, there's an easy solution to this, but I want to take you guys through this. Now, I saw the hands. I saw about 5, 7 hands or so that didn't think we have a problem. And those are really the people that I want to communicate with in a two-way fashion. I think there were some over here and some in the back. Because I also at one point didn't understand all this until I figured it out. And I've spent almost 4 years doing this. I want to take my knowledge and my experiences and give that to you and have that discussion. Okay, there is a truth out there, and there are lies out there as well. And I'm going to try to help everyone understand what is what. And I've got tons of evidence. This is all I do now. I left my life. I left my friends, my family. No, everyone thought I was crazy. I'm sure, probably still thinks I am. Once in a while, they see me pop up here and there. But I feel it's so important that I do this, because if not me, who? That's what I kept thinking about. Someone's got to do it. And so, you know, I'm probably lose everything I have in my life, but I'm going to at least try to bring the truth to us, to try to help our country, because we're hurting. Everyone's hurting for many different reasons. And there's no reason for a country as great as the United States of America to have a public citizenry that is hurting like we are in so many different ways. It's ridiculous. So we can fix this all. We really can. Okay. So mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. I've done of course, computer science. I'm a hardware guy, I'm a software guy. I love forensics, cybersecurity. Forensic is like digging into the system to see what's going on inside, you know, with the ones and zeros. Cybersecurity is protecting computer systems from intrusion, whether it's on the internet or whether it's local or wherever that intrusion is. Root cause analysis in complex systems. I like taking things apart. And I like to get to the root cause of the problem. I'm not a duct tape guy. A lot of people just say, oh, we'll turn it off and turn it back on again. I don't like doing that. Okay, that may solve the problem for a few seconds, but that doesn't figure out why the thing messed up in the first place. I'd rather get to the bottom of it and fix it. And so that's what root cause analysis is. And then I ended up in election technology, which I never in a million years expected to be in. When I was a little kid, I drew a little picture, and I still have it. It was a picture of Mark's computer store with crayon. My mom gave it to me, I think, when I was in college. And never was it Mark's election technology investigations. Never. It was a little computer store. So this is a hotel I ended up going to when I went to DC. It's the Westin Hotel in Wilmington, Virginia. I walked in there, was told to go to a particular room, knock on the door. I knocked on the door. And it turned out to be Sidney Powell's war room that she was in during the election. And her team had just been evacuated at that point. So I showed up right after that. Oh, yeah, there we go. And I'm going to sit down now, so I won't scream. I'm short, so you probably can't even tell I'm sitting down. All right. So that's where I ended up. And I thought I was only going to be there for a few days. And what I was doing on the way there is downloading every manual I could for our election system, because I wanted to walk in there with as much knowledge as possible, because I felt I was going to be totally out of place. I'm just this IT guy from Colorado, from small town Colorado, and all of a sudden I'm going to Washington, DC to, you know, work with all these professionals. So I was trying to educate myself so I wasn't quite so fish out of water. I got there and realized there weren't anyone else, there's no one else that had my knowledge and experience in the IT systems that I had been using. Plus, I don't understand stuff conceptually. I use these same systems every day. I use these same servers. I use the software, the operating systems, the databases. It's all stuff I use every day. I set it up every day. I secure it every day. So I had intimate knowledge of the framework that a lot of our election systems are based on, which made me a very unique person to be there. I thought I was only going to be there for a few days. And I realized a few days into it, I can't abandon these people because they don't know this information. And I'm sitting here like creating diagrams to try to help people understand the complexity of the system. How does the ballot flow through the system? Like, what are the different pieces that are involved? No one seemed to have an idea, which scared me even more. Like, how do these people in DC not understand how our elections work? Especially when there was talk prior to the election that the election is going to be stolen. How on earth did we get caught with our pants down? It's just bizarre to me. And then what do we hear? Immediately after the election, we're told it was the safest, most secure election. There was no fraud in the election. The day after, now that was the fastest government investigation I'd ever seen in my life. Right? They investigated and came to a conclusion in one day. Give me a break. I didn't buy that. It seemed just too odd. And then as we started finding information and evidence and with whistleblowers were coming forward, also, the narrative starts changing, right? The narrative changes to, well, there's no widespread fraud. First, it was no fraud. Now there was no widespread fraud. I'm like, well, that's weird. So we find a little bit of fraud. Now they're just saying there's no widespread. That means there's some localized fraud. There's some fraud, but not widespread. What's widespread? Where's the line for widespread? And I'm not okay with any fraud, really, in our election. I think every dot should be counted properly. That's every legitimate dot, right? So, and then of course, the narrative changes. We find more evidence. What do we hear? Well, there's no widespread fraud enough to change the results of the election, right? It's just every time we found more stuff, the narrative kept changing. And it was the same narrative from every news station, almost verbatim. That was just too coincidental and too strange. So I don't know how many more red flags I needed. Then, of course, let's see, December-ish, the Biden laptop gets put in my lap. I'm like, wait a minute, this is the laptop the FBI said nothing exists. But I have an opportunity to look at it. So I looked at it. And I'll tell you what, it's legitimate. It was real. So I'm like, great. So our FBI is lying to us. Who else is lying to us? Then I'm not trusting anything at that point. And I'm just trying to figure stuff out and get to the truth. And I'll tell you, it was a frightening experience to be in, from a little town in Colorado to all of a sudden realizing that there may be corruption at every possible level of our government. And we had no idea. I figure it's probably a pretty dangerous place to be. But there I was. So, after I left there, not thinking we'd actually made a lot of headway, I started getting phone calls from all over the country saying, will you come to our state and explain, go over your experiences and help other people understand how our elections work? I said, sure. I mean, I hadn't been in many places other than Colorado at that point. I hadn't traveled much. So I had all these opportunities to see all these states. I thought that was really cool. Got to meet a lot of great people, and I came and did something very similar to this. I just said, hey, here's my experience. Here's the data I found, and here's what I think's going on. And I did that for about 2 years, and I wasn't seeing a whole lot of movement. And I'm getting scared, thinking, well, if we don't fix this problem, we're going to be screwed as a country. We have to fix this problem. So let's see here, Lindell symposium, the first symposium showed up. I think that was in 2021, I believe. And I wanted to go to that because I heard this about the packet captures, the PCAPs. Okay. I wanted to know for sure if these things were real. And I wanted to make sure someone wasn't making it up. Because I figured, and from my experience in DC, turns out there are operatives that are there planting misinformation. And I didn't know if it's one of the operatives that planted this or not, or if it's true. If it's true, I should be able to look at the packet captures and know. What a packet capture is, it's like a recording of a phone call. Like if you had a tape recording of a phone call, it's like a tape recording of an internet session, like a network session. So if you look back, you can see all the communication. That's what a packet capture is. Turns out I use packet captures all the time in my job. So if I can look at one of those, I would be able to determine, is this legitimate or is it not? So I didn't get the opportunity to actually see the packet captures, but Tina Peters did show up. And Tina Peters is a clerk in Mesa County, Colorado. Does anyone not know who Tina Peters is? Raise your hand. Okay, that's actually, well, in Colorado, so I hope you know who Tina Peters is. So Tina shows up all of a sudden, so I meet Tina for the first time, you know, I hear her story, I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally get it, wow, a clerk to actually stand up against this machine and look into this, and the things that she was explaining just didn't seem right. As you know, that whole city council elections we had completely flipped, and the candidate for one of the liberals that beat the conservative, the incumbent, knew that they won and knew by how many votes they won by before Tina ever pulled the results from the system. And if I was a clerk, that would make me pretty concerned. I would also be very concerned if my entire conservative city council got wiped and replaced with all liberal candidates. I would be equally concerned if my whole liberal city council flipped and got replaced with conservative candidates that just moved there a few months ago. One of them moved there 3 months before. And all the citizens have no clue who these people are. That's bizarre. That doesn't make sense. So, see, someone plugged it in.
That's feedback, so.
Yeah.
I talked to him earlier and I asked him to set the stage. He's got it set. And so what we'd like to do, Mark, if you want you to get to the data, is I'd like to have, if you think it's the time to do it, to get a comment from anybody in the room now, if they got a question, or if we want to get one of the other guys to speak first, like Seth Ketchel or somebody. Who would you, what would you like to do?
I tell you what, if someone's, based on what I've done over right here, shoot a question. If you have a question for me, I'm more than happy to answer everything. I'm here, to give you everything I got. And then let's grab a set.
Questions? Sir, if you come over here so that you can use the mic. And state your name. And then ask your question or make your comment.
Hey, Gary Kirsch, thanks for being here. Is anything being done nationally to prepare to protect the veterans in November?
I don't know, actually. I know that there are groups all over the country that are working on it, but I don't know if there's a national effort. I don't think there is, and that's why I decided to start traveling county by county and come here and educate people here, because I truly think the only way we're really gonna fix this, based on everything I've seen, everywhere I've been, I think this has to be fixed at a county level. I think the counties need to take back control of their election system for the citizens. The citizens need to be running the elections again. What's happened over 20 years is really simple. There are some people that created these software and hardware systems, and they took these systems, sold them to people that don't understand computers, don't understand cybersecurity, didn't think, what would a bad guy do if they had all this control? They sold the systems in the name of convenience and speed, and they conned a whole bunch of people. So they basically took the control of the elections away from the citizens, away from the county, and they centralized it all. Well, we have a decentralized form of government, and a decentralized form of government requires a decentralized election system. As soon as you start centralizing the election system, the system that chooses the representatives in the government, you centralize that, the government will follow. So the very simple way to fix this, we need to decentralize the elections and put them in the hands of every one of you. Your county's election should be run by all of you.
Okay, with that, let me ask, there's another question out there, and I'd like to have Shona Bishop, county commissioner from Mesa County, to talk, and then I'd like to hear Amy Mitchell from Park County to point out what counties are thinking, just what you pointed out, Mark. So they're going to have to come over to Zoom, but let's see if that works. That's why I wanted to get them involved now, so we get people involved. Shona, unmute yourself, or Jordan, open it up so they can talk.
Okay, while we're waiting on Shona, I'll just tell everyone, folks, we've all been lied to. Our commissioners have been lied to, our election officials have been lied to, our sheriffs have been lied to, the citizens have been lied to, our politicians have been lied to. Now, some of them know, some of them already know, some of them are benefiting from it, and they don't want it to be fixed. But I will tell you, I have uncovered all kinds of lies A lot of the stuff is based on lies, and that's the kind of stuff I'm gonna go over with you. And once you realize who lied to us and what they lied to us about, you start questioning everything. And that's why I say we need to take control back. The citizens need to have it in their own hands. That's the only way to do it. Well, but I got a lot of data. I just don't want to take anyone else's time. You guys, Shona?
Hi, yes, can you hear me now?
Turn it up.
Let's see. Hopefully I'm okay. Is that better? Can you hear me okay?
There, go.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so I am not, I think that the introduction was incorrect. I am not a commissioner in Mesa County. I'm a citizen of Mesa County. I work with Mike Lindell, and he does send his apologies. His pilots were not able to bring him in, so I want you to understand he would love to be there with you guys. But essentially, what I'm seeing in the chat, I think is probably consistent with what I'm hearing, what's probably going on in the room there. So my name is Shona Bishop. I was the citizen that led the canvassing effort in Mesa County after the mentioned city council election, because I was actively working on those city council races. We were in a 70% red community, as you know, Mesa County is. And Mark is correct. We have an affidavit from a watcher at the after party that signed on the affidavit and has continued to be a consistent has consistently worked with us on the cases and on campaigns, saying that she was there when they announced 30 minutes before the election was even called that the slate of 4 had in fact won their race. So I led the canvassing effort there in Mesa County to go knocking on doors and trying to verify that people had actually cast their ballots. There's a longer story to that, and I'm just seeing a lot of things in the chat, so I want to make sure I address these things. Number one, people are asking about lawsuits. The reality is there has not been a single election case that has been heard yet, not one. Every judge has dismissed the case without prejudice, which is really important because that means they're not making a decision. They're passing the case on to the next judge because they don't want to make a decision. They don't want to rule about anything related to elections. They don't want to touch it. They don't want to deal with it because it's become political. Elections belong to the people. They don't belong to politicians, and they certainly don't belong to the federal government. So judges are not willing to look at these cases. What I want to share with you as far as evidence goes, because people are asking specifically, they want to know exactly what evidence was found. I would encourage everybody to go to lindellplan.com, where we have captured all of the evidence right there in our amicus brief that was submitted to the Supreme Court just in March, I believe it was. Everything is here on the evidence that's been found throughout the country. That evidence, some of it just as new as even 3 months ago, 4 months ago, that's been collected from various states around the country, not just Colorado. Although I really want to point out to those who have a mind to listen and their ears are open to the reality of what's happened here. Tina Peters orchestrated as her rightly so, legally so, lawfully so, to have an image done of the voting machines in Mesa County. Those reports, Mesa County 1, 2, and 3, should be vetted by the county commissioners and the clerk of Custer County to verify that, number one, in the reports, 36 Bluetooth modems were found inside the Mesa County machines. That is illegal. That is illegal based on the Colorado Constitution that says the machines must be air-gapped. I want to stress to you that nobody is coming after the county clerks because, as Mark pointed out, the electronic voting machines have been centralized to the Secretary of State in a private contract with Dominion Voting Machines, with Runback. Your clerk does not, and you can, if the clerk is in the room, she should be asked right now, does she have the authority to open up the machines and have them verified as to whether or not they contain Bluetooth modems? That is illegal. It is a violation of the Colorado State Constitution. And she cannot verify that because the Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, who decided to weaponize our election system against the regular people like me and clerks like Tina Peters, and as you heard earlier, the Elbert County clerk, Douglas County clerk, she made it political and decided to send the law enforcement after all of us for asking questions about our own elections. Your clerk will not be able to open up the machine.
Shona,
Yes.
there's a 10-minute limit here, so we want to get to everybody so that we can get questions. Can you
Oh, I
give us some
apologize. I didn't
points
know
and
that.
then figure out how to wrap
Yes,
up? I'm
so-
sorry, I didn't make that
Yeah.
clear.
No problem. Let me make just a couple points about the machines of what was found in the Lindell. This is the Supreme Court case that was just filed. All of the evidence is now public evidence. You can go read it for yourself. Thank you so much. Thank you for keeping me on point. I'm a very, very passionate about this particular issue because it's cost me a lot and my family a lot. So really quickly here, if you go to lindellplan.com, you're going to see one of the biggest key takeaways, which is what you asked at the very beginning. Is this malicious? Is what's going on inside the machines malicious? Our Supreme Court case on page 13 of the filing demonstrates that it absolutely is. According to our the verbiage used by our attorney, Kurt Olson, decryption keys were found inside the voting machines. Right now, your machines right there in Custer County are protected by nothing greater than a Gmail account login. That's it. These companies are required to have all of these incredible protections, all of this stuff on there. Dominion and other machine companies, HART, ES&S, all throughout the country, all chose before the 2020 election and the 2022 elections to get rid of all of that, which is found in the Mesa County reports as well. And instead, basically the way that our attorney phrases it for all of you to be able to understand in, me too, layman's terms, it's like a bank telling the public that they have the most secure vault in the world and then taping the combination on the wall next to the vault door. Even worse, key logging features that would record system activity showing such control can also be manipulated or disabled, thereby rendering any penetration of the system nearly undetectable, meaning anyone can break into your machines there in Custer County. You would never know. Your very sweet, kind clerk, who I have a lot of respect for, she would never know. And that's on purpose. It is absolutely malicious. And we demonstrated that in the Supreme Court case filing. The last thing was asked is there evidence of Custer County? Well, I just posted to my social media, and I'll send this over to the county or to the county clerk and the commissioners as well. In 2021, according to the Secretary of State data, Dr. Doug Frank ran every county in Colorado, but Custer County has its own special page demonstrating that you had 102% registered voters and nearly over 100% turned in their ballots. Amazingly, you even had many people over the age of 100 who voted in your elections for 2020, and the data seems to be consistent for 2022 as well. That's worth looking at and being able to affirm based on your own paper ballot hand counts. I'm sure Mark's going to get into it, how once the ballots are ran through the tabulators, it's too late to do a paper ballot hand count. But at this point, I'm going to go with Eric Prince on this, and basically every candidate running for president minus Biden that are saying paper ballot hand count elections are the way to go moving forward. I realize that Jenna Griswold has made it criminal in the state of Colorado to do a paper ballot hand count exclusively with 1,000 or more population in your county. But that does not mean you can't do a paper ballot hand count thoroughly first and then use the machines after you've completed the paper ballot hand count. And that would be a great solution for you guys. The paper ballot hand count process can be found at causeofamerica.org. It's free. It's available to you. We will also send trainers to help you and educate you. Mark also has a great system as well. Those tools are available to you guys. We want what's best for all of us. Yeah.
You brought up very good points, and that's part of the reason we're having this meeting, because we want to go forward to get that kind of data so we can make a good decision on what is best for us. I'll
send all of those links to you.
We'd like to have Amy. Thank you very much. Amy Mitchell, if you're on, and George.
Yes, I am. Commissioner, thank you very much.
Make a statement. Hang on a second. Let's get the mic up to you.
Go ahead, Amy.
All right. Thank you very much, commissioners. It's an honor to speak with you this evening. Amy Mitchell, I'm a Park County Commissioner, and I just want to provide this quick perspective. Accurate voting is the foundation of our republic. Every vote matters, and every legitimate vote should be accurately counted. As a Park County Commissioner, we are sworn to uphold the Constitution of Colorado and the United States, and we're required under state statute to use an electromechanical counting device to count ballots. However, those devices are a black box that we cannot lay eyes on how they operate. The software is proprietary. We cannot visually audit those votes, and it is unknown how they operate because that software is proprietary. In addition, the Dominion contract that we are under does not explicitly state in the contract that it accurately counts votes. We have to the contract states we have to look at the software manuals on how it operates to see how it counts votes. And I do not, that is a proper contract law. And so the only way to be able to audit a vote is to be able to get our hands on the actual paper ballots that are provided by voters, and we are prohibited to audit those through the Secretary of State statute and rules. So we've got a problem. We need full transparency, and I believe that it is important that everybody keep an open mind and look at really what is the best to serve all the citizens of Colorado who are voting and want to be engaged and want their voice heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy. I believe there's a couple other commissioners that would like to speak to, but let's let Mark take it from here because there's some points that were brought up that might beg some questions from you all to get straight or make a statement with.
Yeah. There we go. Okay, sounds good. And I'm glad I heard that because I do want to clear some things up. This is a very complex system. And so and a lot of people don't understand how the whole thing works. And therefore, there's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding about it. And so if we are talking past each other because no one seems to understand the system, we're never going to be able to fix it. So what I try to do is I try to explain what the system actually is and how it works and truly what the problems with it are. Because if we're not on the same framework, we're never going to be able to get to a solution. We're literally just going to be talking completely past each other, screaming at each other, trying to solve two different types of problems. So let me just go into the basics here. So the nutshell, elections are a tool to measure the will of the people. That's what our elections are supposed to do, measure your will, our will. Okay. Food scales. Everyone has seen the food scale. At grocery store, you set your food on it, right? It tells you how much it weighs and you pay based on that weight, okay? Can you imagine if someone miscalibrated or even did it on purpose, miscalibrated that thing? So when you put a pound of veggies on it, it actually shows 1.5 pounds and you ended up having to pay for 1.5 pounds when you only got 1 pound. How many people measure or weigh their groceries separately with your own scale that you bring? You take one out of your purse and say, all right, I know this says 1 pound, but I want to see what mine says. No, you just blindly trust the scale at the grocery store, okay? Now, some people might say, well, they would never do that, right? Well, I don't know if you know this, but you know Whole Foods did? You know Whole Foods recently got caught for miscalibrating their scales. And it's funny, they miscalibrated it in a way that actually cost the customers more money. So how strange, right? What a coincidence. And not just one store, multiple stores. Isn't that strange how all those multiple stores are going to cost the customers more money, claiming that the food weighed more than it really did. And they got caught doing it. So can you imagine if we had that same problem with our elections? Right, if we aren't checking them ourselves, if we aren't controlling them and managing them ourselves, how do we know? We're just told to blindly trust the systems. And when you blindly trust something, it's really easy to get taken advantage of. And we cannot afford to get taken advantage of, right? Maybe the carrots cost an extra 50 cents. Yeah, that's one thing. But can you imagine if our election system is miscalibrated to the point where we have laws that are enacted that we did not actually vote for, or people to represent us that we did not vote for? We cannot risk that, nor should we have to. So Whole Foods claimed we made some mistakes. Isn't that funny how the mistakes benefited Whole Foods? And no offense to Whole Foods, I mean, I like Whole Foods, but I don't like people that take advantage of other people. And that was a really stupid mistake to make. It's not hard to calibrate the scale. So what we see are intentional acts that can be easily disguised as a mistake. And that is the pattern I'm seeing all across the country as I travel and look at all this evidence. All I hear is, oh, that was a mistake. It was isolated. It was a programming error. It was a USB flash drive error. It was just a mistake. Don't worry. An error, an isolated error. Give me a break. You can only hear that so many times before you say, that's odd, because those mistakes, those errors always seem to benefit one group. Kind of doesn't look like an error. So we are expected to blindly trust our elections. And they can be easily manipulated. That's the problem. They're a very complex system. And if they can be easily manipulated and we can't see the manipulation, how on earth are we truly going to trust the laws and the representatives that are in place? Okay, we have a system that we are being told we must trust it. It's mandated trust. That's absurd. The system should be so simple and so transparent that it can earn our trust. Earned trust is far superior to mandated trust. We are counting dots on a piece of paper, and we need to make sure the people filling the dots out live in the county. There's your whole election system. That's the whole thing. But we have $1 billion every year spent on elections. We have all these complex systems, and we still don't know the results 4 years later. Right? And we have all these elections, these little ones, that are being overturned because these mistakes are found all over. So if these little ones are being turned and found out that there's a problem, a mistake, an error, if we have a system that's so prone to error, maybe we shouldn't be using it. Maybe we should count the dots ourselves. Real simple. So I'm going to give you here's my contact information, just in case anyone has to leave early. I want you, feel free to contact me. I'm here for my fellow citizens. So take a picture of that. It's got my phone number, my email address, and my website. At least have that. And then I'm going to go to the 4 main components.
Hold your four.
Okay.
Just a second. Mike Lindell's on, doesn't have a lot of time, so I want to hear from him.
Who's Mike Lindell? I'm just kidding.
So thank you for the last stance. You're up next. Mike, are you there?
Go ahead, Mike.
He might have fallen asleep on his pillow.
Could be.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm getting an echo. Hold on, let me turn. I got 2 phones on.
If you can speak a little closer to your mic, it might help us hear you a little better. We're not hearing anything from you, Mike.
While we're waiting for Mike, I'll tell you, I don't think the country would be where we're at without Mike Lindell. For easier.
Hello?
There it is.
Yeah,
Hello?
Mike. Go ahead. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we do.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. You guys, I would have been there in person, but I was speaking in Wisconsin at a rally over there, and I just got back to my studio, but anyway, I'm here now. I was reading all the comments that I'm not going to name the people's name, but they're very misconstrued on a lot of things, and I want to take you back really quick to when I got involved in January or in November and December of 2020. I took calculus in 9th grade, everybody. I looked for deviations every day in numbers, mathematical numbers. Well, one of the things that bother me is every county in the United States, including Colorado, and in every state, people voted in that county that were non-residents, which is illegal. I couldn't imagine everybody just going, hey, let's run into Colorado and vote for Biden. It just doesn't happen. People are genuinely good people. You wouldn't have these kind of numbers of people doing stuff illegal. Just wouldn't make sense. And yes, the first Deb, that is you that's misconstrued. I'm going to explain in a minute here. I see you're putting your comments in. So what I did is I was given evidence in January 9th of 2021 that explained everything, that things were done with computers. Okay. I have a business. I have computers every day that if things go bad, if you have a glitch or if you have a hack, you know what? It's just money. And it's insurance might cover it, whatever. But usually it's just, it costs the company a lot of money. You have people come in, fix the breach, and it's a constant battle with computers. But when this happens in an election, it affects everything we do and our freedoms. Now, let me tell you, for the last 3 years, I have spent over $40 million every dime I've had, not on these big lawsuits against me, but out there, people that have canvassed, lawyers that have been out there, laws that were put in illegally, things that were done like in Colorado, when Tina Peters got that Mesa County image, and Jenna Griswold did the trust to build and deleted all the 2020 election data in all the machines in Colorado. These are facts. And in fact, I couldn't believe it. I go, doesn't anybody want to know the truth of what went on? By the way, you can see the Mesa County image is posted on frankspeech.com. This isn't reports. This is the actual image that shows the evidence. And by the way, the comment and the things here by this Deb Adams says there were 60-some cases where the elections were proven there was a no election crime. That's not true. Every single case in the United States that's went on, and every one of them has been either stopped or standing or pushed out and not ruled on the merits of the evidence. We have the stuff like Shona said at the Supreme Court right now that they didn't accept it, but all the evidence was put into their decryption codes in all the Dominion machines. That's like a God key that can just do whatever you want. And you say, well, who would do that? Well, they're in the machines, just like having your ATM card with your password written on it. These are facts. When you talk specifically of Dominion, as you guys know, I want all computers gone. I have met with France, Germany, the UK. I met with the Netherlands. I met with them all. They have the best hand counting systems in the world. Ours is even better that we've developed. And let me tell you, they outlawed machines. There's countries around the world that have outlawed the computers in our elections. If you want more evidence, if you go to Georgia in the 2022 primary, a Democrat, this isn't a Democrat or Republican thing, by the way, either. A Democrat got 0 votes in her own precinct where her and her husband live. 0, everybody. So Brad Rassenberger, Crooked Brad down there, had to open up the machines and go, oh, it was a mistake. It was a programming error. Well, why are you programming our elections? This gal got 3,000 some votes. They seen it was a programming error and moved her from 3rd to 1st place. Another Democrat, 4 counties over, got 4,600 votes, but she wasn't on the ballot and she wasn't a write-in. They called that a programming error. This was done at 4 different races in our country, including 2 in Colorado, where you're taking the computers are taking votes from one candidate, giving it to a no-name candidate. And that candidate, in this case, was a Democrat, and it wasn't even on the ballot, but someone had to physical type her name in. I'll use Georgia for another example. We've been fighting a case down there that went on for 3.5 years where they hid stuff from the public, called the curling case against Crooked Brad Rassenberger in Georgia. Now, the Secretary of State there, a Republican, okay, he didn't want this information to come out. He goes, oh, we're going to go ahead and use the machines in the 2020 election. Then he goes, no, we're going to use them again in the 2022 elections. Well, finally, the Obama-appointed judge ruled this fall and said this. The experts that got to look inside those machines, Alex Halderman and others, they got to look in those machines and they said there's problems. We've got problems. There are major problems in there. Well, this judge said, hey, the experts say this, because we're going to move this case forward. And if you question the machines, you're not a conspiracy theorist. That was the day I got to take off my tinfoil hat that all the government's going, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. I'm a citizen. I've lived the American dream. I'm a former crack addict. I lived the American dream and built a company here that was made in the USA, thousands of employees, and they've been nothing but attacked, the most attacked company in history, because their CEO wants to go to paper ballots and get rid of these computers. And let me tell you what this judge did. On January 9th of this year, that case went to trial in Georgia. Alex Halderman, you might not have heard this on the news, he hacked into the machine with a ballpoint pen and flipped an election in 3 minutes in front of that judge. That case is still pending there. All these cases in the country that have been suppression. Well, are all the judges bad? No, they're afraid to be first. They're afraid to be first to say, hey, we got problems. We've got to look into these computers. We've got to look into these. And I encourage you all, there's over 250 counties in the United States right now that we believe are going to go to paper ballots hand counted for the 2024 election. We have to get to that point. This fall or this last summer, Argentina, one judge said, hey, we can't use these computers and these machines anymore. We need to go to paper ballots hand counted. She's seen the corruption and what was going on. And they did that. They did it in 4 months. And you know what? They had a free and fair election for the first time in decades. Taiwan did it. Ecuador did it. Countries all over the world. We have the worst election platforms on the face of the earth here in the United States. This isn't about Donald Trump. This isn't about Republicans versus Democrats. This is about our freedoms that we have to get. We're at an apex in history, everybody. You got artificial intelligence. Who's going to monitor this? I was down in Phoenix. They got cars driving around with no driver. You sign a disclaimer. If you die, it's not our fault. You jumped into our car. Well, you know what? Do we want people that are elected or selected? Do we want to trust our elections? There is no way. You do not get to look inside these computers. I've never seen anything like this in my life. If you have a defective car or defective, there's brakes on a car, you get a recall on them and you look into them. Anyone that says in Colorado there wasn't problems in Colorado, you guys had more problems than anyone, and your Secretary of State just decided to do something called the trusted bill. Deleted all of the computers and all of these Dominion machines in the state of Colorado, and they're supposed to hold that information. It's called cast vote records for 22 months. In Colorado, it's even an extra 4 months. But federal law said they were supposed to hold them for 22 months. She deleted it a year early. That's when Tina Peters made that image, the very famous image. You guys want evidence? Just go look at frankspeech.com. It says inside the machines. I put it up there. I don't care. We're out to save our country. I'm telling you, if these computers and machines are not gone, and you know what? Are we going to get them all gone by this 2024 election? Probably not. But we're going to have enough. If your county in Colorado would stand up, why wouldn't anybody? I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. Remember, everybody, the Democrats wanted these machines gone for 2 decades. 2 decades. My own senator in Minnesota, Amy Klobuchar, Kamala Harris, all the Democrats, the movie Kill Chain, wanted these machines gone. They knew they were bad. These 4 companies control all of our elections. Hart, Smartmatic, Dominion, and ES&S out of Omaha. You guys have Dominion there in Colorado. They're at the tip of the spear. We already know what happened in Colorado. You guys need to stand up. You really do. And why would anybody not want that? We have answered every question. If you come to us and say, well, our machines aren't online. Yes, they're online. South Carolina learned that. Remember in this primary a few months ago, they shut down the state of South Carolina in the middle of the afternoon in the primary and said, we can't vote right now because our machines are offline. The internet went down. Well, I thought you weren't online. Okay, there's one thing. And then they say, well, it's going to cost more. No, it's 10 times cheaper to do paper ballots hand counted. And then they go, well, we love our machines over here. Whatever excuse you would have, we've answered that. It's going to take longer. No, it's not going to take longer. We did our system in in Osage County, Missouri. You guys, Osage County, a year ago in an election, Democrats and Republicans working together, they finished 5 minutes later than the machines, but with 100% accuracy. That was in Osage County, Missouri, a year ago. It was a beautiful election. This is what we need to have. Transparency. You put this under cameras and you got this, paper ballots hand counted. And everyone says, well, we can use machines to count it because it's faster. No, you can't. You guys, you cannot. You have to go paper ballots, hand counted. We have to save our country and our election platforms. And you guys know, I got in a big argument today with some journalists over in Wisconsin, and there was a left-wing journalist attacking me going, well, there's no evidence that they have 2020 election. There's no evidence. Well, you know what? Nothing's been looked at based on merit by judges. There's plenty of evidence. I got enough evidence for here to the sun and back. We're not talking about the past. We're talking about moving forward. And if we're talking about moving forward, I have been attacked more than any time in history since August when we came up a plan to secure our elections county by county, and we put that plan into place. And across this country, halfway through South Dakota, half the counties in South Dakota are going to be going to paper ballots and count. Up in New Hampshire, all over this country. But the problem is, every time one county stands up, like Shasta County, California, they get shot down, and it's usually by uniparty Republicans. We had Cleburne County, Arkansas. Cleburne County a year and a half ago said we're going to go to paper ballots hand counted because they can do that at the county level. They voted it in. All these other counties in Arkansas were going to follow suit, but this Kim Hammers, a Republican, went before the Senate, and here's the bill he pushed through. He goes, yep, if you're a county in Arkansas and you go to paper ballots, we're going to defund you. Are you kidding me? It's the people's choice in the county. The people have the choice. You just made a decision and took it out of all the people's hands. And, I know you guys are limiting on time. I just want to tell you that all the efforts, anybody that tells you lies that there's no evidence, that's a lie. Anybody that tells you it's going to be longer, or we're going to get sued, that's all rubbish. This is the future of our country. I've lived the American dream, going from a crack addict to where I'm at. And you know what? We need to save the American dream for our children, grandchildren, and our future of this country. And but I thank you for having me on. And like I say, anything you guys want to see for evidence, there's you just go to lindellplan.com, go to frankspeech.com. I just put it out there, but you know what? It gets suppressed. You get people that are in the comments here going, there's no evidence. Show us the evidence. I'm showing you the future. Forget about even the evidence. The future is paper ballots hand counted so that people trust our elections and we have elections and not selections. So, but thank you very much. And I wish I could have been there in person, but Colorado, by the way, is the tip of the spear.
If you can't hear it, Mike, a round of applause and thank you. And if you can stick around and people can ask questions, that'd be great. But we've got to let Mark talk about some.
Okay.
Because what you've done matters, and the evidence we need to understand. We're on a fact gathering mission right now as the Custer.
Okay.
Here are the rest of the facts, but thank you very, very much.
Oh, thank you. And he's well versed in explaining all this. So.
Well, he's proven it. Here he goes now. It's his turn again.
All right, there we go. Let me pull this back up here. Okay, so yeah, Mike's tenacity and diligence on this and staying focused on it, and like he said, he saw deviations. He saw stuff that didn't make sense, didn't add up, and I think a lot of us saw the same things in different ways, and so that's what he honed in on. And I gotta say, there's problems. We have problems with our election system. There is no question. Elections have been manipulated for years, decades. It is not something new. This did not just start in 2020. Elections have been manipulated by all parties. Democrats manipulated, Republicans manipulated. the election cartel, I like to call them, they're the ones manipulating it. We, the people, we're the victims. We are suffering a system that doesn't always accurately represent our will. And now we have no way to determine that. We are so far removed from that. And if we dare question it, we get attacked. That's kind of strange right there, right? If there's nothing to hide, why are we hiding anything? So how did we get here? Well, this is pretty much it. There's a group of people that think we are stupid. And it really annoys me that people take advantage of them, of people. Now, I do think this is how they appear and how they feel when they look at the world. And I don't subscribe to that same idea. I'm sorry. I'm not a big globalist. I'm not a globalist at all. I like to take care of my own family, my own people, my own country, my own citizens, my own state, my own county. That's what we all need to do. We should have a community in every county that takes care of each other. And I think the globalists don't want that. They want something very, very different. So the ecosystem is really important to understand. The election ecosystem, this quick education. It's 4 main components to our election system. There's a voter registration system. It's a list of names and addresses that are allowed to vote in the election. Real simple. The voter validation system is the system that's supposed to protect to make sure no illegitimate votes get put in the system. And the tabulation, that's the computer that counts the votes. That's the black box people keep talking about. Okay, that's the boxes that Mike wants to melt down and make prison bars out of. Okay, and I gotta say, I would love to do that at this point too, but it's not just the black boxes that are the problem. It's an entire ecosystem that's actually the problem. And that's why we haven't fixed the problem in 3.5, 4 years. I believe there's a group of people really trying, well, there's some of them that are purposely trying to distract the public, so they're only looking at one leg of this 4-legged stool. And there are people that just don't know any better, and they really want to fix the problem. And so they grasp the first thing they see, and that's what they focus on. But what I want to educate you all about is the system in entirety and why it's so important that we fix each component of it to make sure that our will matters. The reporting is the last leg. Okay, so if everything goes perfectly fine through the election system and the clerk gets a result out at the end, and let's say it's all legitimate up to that point, if they take that result and send that result to some third-party company and all the clerks in all the counties send their results to this other company, and that company adds the totals up for all of us and lets us know what the total is, do you see a potential issue there? What if we can't trust that company? You know, it may be a few companies, but what if we can't trust them? Now, everyone here can count dots on a piece of paper, right? Of course, right? We can also add like that, right? Is anyone here? Well, I guess not if you're using common format. But if you don't use common format, you can add, right? So why aren't the citizens adding up the results of our own elections? Isn't that strange? So the voter registration system controls the number of ballots in circulation. That's really important when you have a mail-in ballot state, especially like Colorado, unsolicited, mail out and then back in ballots. That means every entry in that database gets a ballot mailed out to it. And do you know that the entries in that database don't necessarily correspond to a real living person in that county? So that's the biggest mistake we made. We disconnected the physical body from the ability to register to vote. Back in the day, if you wanted to register to vote, you had to go to your county building. You walked in there, you signed a voter registration card. How did they know that was your signature? Well, because what's attached to your hand? Your arm. And what's attached to that? Your body. They saw who signed the voter registration card. So they know that was your signature. Well, we don't have that anymore. Now voter registration just magically appear. So what we've done is we've taken a physical system, we physically show up to fill that card out, and we've virtualized it. We now have virtual registrations. And when you have virtual registrations, a smart bad guy that knows how to use computers can manipulate that. They can find a way to inject extra entries in the system. And if they do that, the counties wouldn't even know. Why? Because the counties don't manage the system anymore. The counties don't have control of it. The control has been taken away and given to some other company. So the county just has the ability to go into a computer and click the buttons, but they don't maintain the database itself. They don't have the database in your county. right? They can't control who can access it. Other people could access it. Your county people have no idea. That is a problem. If I was a clerk, I would never allow that. I wouldn't want that, because if I'm supposed to represent my citizens and protect my election system for my citizens in my county, I'm not gonna allow some other entity to control it. Now, I know a lot of clerks, they're bound by the law, right? So if the Secretary of State says you have to use this system, what is a clerk gonna do? We have a predicament. I don't have the exact solution for everyone down to the minute details. I can say the laws are set up to make it very inconvenient or impossible for the citizens and the local election clerks, local election officials to run their own elections. They have been cut out of it too. And instead of getting upset at clerks, and I'm not saying you guys are, I don't know your clerk, I don't know your relationship with your clerk, but your clerk is probably a citizen of the county. And what we all should be doing is working together, the citizens with the election officials, with the commissioners, with the clerk, to control and manage and maintain and protect the election in this county for the citizens of the county. So the voter validation, yes.
Joe wants.
Oh, okay. Let me get through these four,
those four.
and then we'll bring Joe on. So the voter validation system, so picture this, we've got phantom records in the voter rolls, okay? And we're told, well, we have this mail-in system, so ballots come back in through the mail, okay? And don't worry though, because we check signatures is what we're all told, right? How many people by a show of hands mailed a ballot in? It's okay, don't be shy. Okay, all right, not a huge amount. I beg of you never to do it again now, and I'm gonna explain why. You'll understand why at the end of this. So let's pretend we are in the county and we're gonna handle that ballot, okay? So we get the envelope in the mail and we're gonna make sure that Joe Smith actually signed this. So we look at the signature on the envelope and we look in the reference signature, which is usually in another computer system, and we compare those two signatures. Now, let's ignore the fact that a smart computer person could fix that system to match a forged signature easily, and that the signature could easily be forged. Let's just assume that really is Bob Smith's signature. Okay, now we've opened the envelope up and we pull the ballot out. How do you know who filled the ballot out? You don't. So what does the signature verification do? It's nothing. It's warm fuzzies. It's a false sense of security. And here's why you know that the signature verification is actually a joke. Because I've asked people that have verified signatures, and how many people here have verified signatures in an election? Raise your hand. Okay, great. How long was your training? Couple of hours. Okay. Now I'm gonna ask this next question, and that's long. Usually I hear about 15 minutes. So the next question I usually ask is this. And I'm gonna ask all of you this, but not the people that did the signature verification. Hold on. Okay, after people are trained to do signature verification in the test that they're given to make sure they know how to do it right, what do you think the minimum required grade on that test is? Do you think it's an A, a B, a C, D? What, a C? Any higher?
Pass.
A pass. Okay, what percentage do you think it should be? Oh, you guys are getting good, you're getting smart. Okay, a lot of people usually say they should get at least 90. Should get 90. Okay, so let's say if it is a 90, that means 1 out of every 10, you screw up. Okay, that means a ballot comes in that you reject that should have been passed through, or it comes in and you allow it through that shouldn't have been allowed through. Okay, you induce 10% error in the election. Okay, that would mean 10% of the people here would be disenfranchised of their vote if someone was verifying their signatures that only got a 90 on that test. So you are all right. It should be no less than 100%, right? They should be able to do that perfectly every time. So in the test that you were given, wait, were you given a test? No test.
Yes.
Were you given a test? Okay, and how many signatures were you given in the test?
Plus hours of training.
And how, well,
You have to get.
not everywhere.
You have to get 100% on the test.
How many signatures did they give you on the test?
It's a full 2 days worth of.
I'm sure, right, but at the end, when they gave you, did they give you a whole bunch of signatures to actually grade?
Yes.
And then did they test to see how many of those you got right?
Yes.
Okay, what county was that?
This is Custer County right here.
In Custer? Okay, how many signatures are provided for the test?
I'm gonna say maybe 5.
5 signatures? Okay, I don't know if that's a valid sampling to make sure someone can do the job right now. A certified forensic document analyst takes 2 years of schooling to be able to certify a signature in a court of law. And I'm pretty sure that our election, since our vote is the most valuable thing we have in our life, we should at least have certified forensic document analysts verifying, but we've also determined you still don't know who filled the ballot out. So that's really the problem. So that's an issue with the voter validation. There's also a major issue with the electronic poll books. I'm gonna go into that feedback thing as well. The tabulation, we have these computer systems. We're not allowed to look inside. The counties aren't even allowed to see if they're running the software that the Secretary of State claims they're running. And I can tell you right now, I highly doubt they are, but I think you should look. And the funny thing is, if your county says, your county clerk even says, no, we want to examine this. We'd like someone to actually audit the system to make sure it's running exactly the software we are told you certify. I have a feeling they would be blocked from being able to do that, and that should be a huge sign that maybe something's wrong. And if someone won't let you look at something and they tell you just to blindly trust them, I wouldn't use it. I think it's stupid to use it. And then the reporting system controls the totals we see. So I want to go through those 4 main components because I'm going to show you evidence of the vulnerabilities of each of these systems, how they're all being abused throughout the entire country. Real evidence. I'm going to show you pictures of it. I'm going to show you examples of it. So you actually know, because everyone says, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? I'm bringing it to you. Anyway, I think Joe Oltmann wanted to say 2 words.
Why, go ahead and show some evidence. Here he does, but I'd like to first have to see if anybody has any questions over what you presented.
Okay, so far, questions? And those that don't think we have a problem with the election, please speak up, like throw whatever you've got at me. I'm a big boy. I'm happy to answer every question.
Go ahead and state your name and then ask your question.
Beth Roman, Fremont County. My father is in a nursing home with severe dementia. He was registered to vote by the deputies of the county clerk and recorder that go out to the nursing home. When I got his Colorado ID, I did not register him to vote, but it was COVID and I didn't know he got registered to vote. I received a matchup of the voted records to the national change of address list from BOCC at Cause of America, and it showed that my dad his ballot had been voted, but it had been counted in Fremont County. However, his actual ballot was shown to me unvoted in the clerk's office. What can I do to prove that to our clerk? Because he doesn't have any belief whatsoever that any of this has any validity.
Okay, so do you actually physically have the ballot?
No,
Where is the ballot itself?
no idea that
Okay, so the
family
the
members
system,
cannot have. the
okay,
ballot.
so the system shows that he voted. And you're saying your clerk says he didn't?
And actually showed me his unvoted ballot.
What do you mean, showed you the unvoted ballot, meaning showed you the ballot itself?
Yes. Well, in the envelope, it was still in. the
Okay, in the, showed you an envelope that was sealed.
Yeah.
It clearly had not been voted.
Right.
Okay, now, what you were looking at originally that showed it voted, it might have just been, it was received by the tabulation center, received by the county versus voted. Are you sure that's what it was?
No, this was from Cause of America, and this was actual
Okay,
votes cast record.
I would say dig into it.
And I would also say that I am aware that our county clerk does not. Any ballots that come back unvoted, whether they come back from the post office as undeliverable, they don't reconcile that. There's no
I get it.
mechanism
I get
for
it.
double checking on
So
this.
mail-in ballots it's a gateway for fraud. Okay, it just is, and the county clerks, they don't have control of the system. And that's gotta be really embarrassing for them. Okay, and it's also a heck of a lot of extra work for them. So all these anomalies can occur very easily in this system. That's the problem. We've created a system that is abusable in countless number of ways. Now, there is like a nursing home thing. There's organic theft in elections where people, they're not necessarily breaking the law, but will say that they are doing things within the law that subtly manipulate the election. It's technically not illegal. That stuff exists also. So we got that going on, and then we have people that just blatantly break the law as well. It's a very complex problem, and a lot of people argue this thing, and they say, no, it's this. And they say, and another person says, no, it's this. And they don't realize it's D, all of the above, and people are arguing whether it's A or B. It's D. And so I've got a lot of evidence to show all that. It's excruciating to watch all this from where my vantage point, seeing all this and seeing all the citizens that are totally lost, that are trying to find answers to stuff that they should easily be able to answer. And then they go to the person that's supposed to be able to answer those questions, and that person doesn't answer. A lot of times because they don't know and they're too embarrassed to say. So if you find a problem, just dig in.
Okay, so I'm Nikita Phillips, Custer County, and I don't disagree with you. I do think that there's a problem, but just to clarify a little bit of what goes on here, I'm not the clerk, but I am an election judge, and I have been for the last couple of years. And I did do training for this election cycle. And just to clarify a little bit of how we do the signature verification, because I was the one in the back. So there is generally two people there verifying signatures. And if they say, wait, this doesn't look right, and there's a slew of signatures that they're looking at. It's not just one or two, it's several signatures. And people's signatures change over time. I mean, we get sick or we get older and our signatures change. And if there is a discrepancy, they will call two more people over and say, hey, what do you think about this? And if they say, yeah, that doesn't look like Gordon's signature. So what will happen then is our clerk, Kelly, will send a letter, and our small county, everybody knows everybody. So 95% of the time she'll give you a call and say, hey, Gordon, I need you to come in here and verify your signature so your vote counts. And so that's just a little, what happens after it leaves here? I have no clue. I mean, no clue. But when it's here, like I've told everybody I talk to, be an election judge, sign up, go talk to Kelly, get on the rotation, and so that you can see, be a poll watcher. It's a 30-minute class. And then you can go and you can verify for yourself what's going on in that basement or what's going on in our cycle here in this county. So if you have any questions, just go talk to Kelly.
So on the system that you use to verify the signature, what computer system are you using to look at the reference signatures? Score. Okay, Score is Colorado system. Okay, so here's what a bad guy would do with that. Really easily. If I was a bad guy, I would be the president right now because it's so easy to pull the wool over people's eyes that don't understand what's going on. Okay. All the signatures are already in an electronic system. If I wanted to forge signatures, I already have them all. All the county thinks, well, we're uploading the signatures so we can compare them later. But a bad guy would say, oh, they just put all the signatures in this database. Now I can grab them all and I can just forge a whole bunch of them and they're not going to know the difference. And truly, they don't. Now, in smaller counties, I think we have less problems. I think in smaller counties, the manipulation happens outside the voter rolls more so than internally. But there are some small counties I run into where you got a crooked clerk. Now, I'm not saying you have one here at all, but I'm saying I have found counties that have a crooked clerk. And then commissioners that don't want to listen because commissioners, guess what? They're chosen by the election, right? And the clerk runs the election. And if the clerk knows how to manipulate the election in the county, then they can keep that commissioner, those commissioners in place forever. Same with the sheriff. So if you have a system that the citizens aren't running, you have to just trust everyone that is running. And if they're not trustworthy, that's when you have a problem. And you may have a great staff now, but what happens in a year when that changes? When that one person gets in there? I want a system that's so bulletproof and the citizens are running it, that it doesn't matter who conducts the election because it's so transparent, we can all see it.
Thank you. We've got Mr. Oltmann.
Joe Oltmann.
Joe Oltmann. Are you there, Joe?
I am here. I'm enjoying the comments greatly. So I want to start by saying this. I'm a two-time Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year finalist. I have 3 tech companies, not 2, not 1, but 3. I employ about 240 people. I've been attacked. I live in a house that is fortified. I did not get involved in this because I wanted to have anything to do with elections. I did all of this based on getting involved with stopping them from burning our communities down when you had this Arab Spring that we allowed these radicals to do in our communities in 2020, going in and burning down communities and instilling fear in really good people, not just in Colorado, but around the country. And so in getting to the kind of meat of all this, I was also the first person to get sued by Eric Coomer, who I just want to talk about coincidences because there's a lot of people saying that there's no fraud. Show me the evidence, show me the evidence. And the evidence is massive. It's not just a small piece of evidence, but it's been picked apart by what could only be considered, I call it the mockingbird media, but it's actually more of a concerted effort. And because we have decentralized elections from every state, they can always go to the fact that, oh, that was just a mistake. Oh, that was just an error, and not talk about the foundation or the system architecture of that system. So I want to just talk about, and Mark I don't know if Mark, you've done the presentation. Presentation of flipping votes, but the system architecture of Dominion voting system could not withstand any scrutiny. It's built on standards that go back to 2005. I know we've heard these comments about, Bluetooth modems and modems that are on the board, and yet the left and or people that sit over here and that are so afraid of the truth are over here chirping and parroting things like misinformation, disinformation. They keep saying the same things all over again. The Polis, who was the CEO of Dominion Voting Systems, went on and said that these are not connected machines. They do not have modems. That turned out to be a lie. That was an absolute lie. The machines do have modems. Okay. When we got access to, or the forensic audit was done on Mesa County, it was not the first time that you've had our hands on these election machines. You look at what happened in Antrim County, and the first forensic audit that came out said the machines, based on the expertise of the people that actually looked into the Antrim machines in Michigan, said that they were designed to defraud the American voter. Their words, not mine. As we get further down the line, we did a system architecture and built out a model in December of 2020. After trying to figure out, okay, is it possible that Eric Coomer said these things flamboyantly, or did he say these things because he actually did affect the outcome of the election? And many of you don't understand that over 50% of the election are run by Dominion voting systems. That's a fact, right? Here's another fact. Dominion voting systems, literally in their own records, which was just released to Dar Leaf from a lawyer because of crimes that were committed, in their own words, they say that the system is absolute, I'm gonna use their words, shit. And not only did they say that, but they admitted that foreigners, Serbian nationals, who were never given a clearance, never given a background check, were in control of the voting machines on election night and after election night in 2020. That's not hyperbolic. That's not making it up. That's absolute fact based upon their own evidence, which, by the way, they forced the court in that case to put a protective order because the people in this room, you're not smart enough to understand the complexities of elections. You're not smart enough to make up your own mind whether or not this is a fraudulent system or if this is a system that protects your voice. What I find interesting about this 2,100 pages, which represents roughly 20%, or excuse me, 2% of the actual emails and discovery that was in that case. Now, I am not privy to some of the other things. I've been asked to review things from a system standpoint. I have validated those things. But they also, inside of that information, talked about defrauding the very people that do the certification, and saying, we know this is a different architecture. We know this has changed, but we're going to call it 5.5B rather than 5.7, which would have to go through the certification process again. Again, this actually happened. You can look at these 2,100 pages. Matter of fact, I'll put it in the comment after we get done talking here. If you look state by state, you look at the information inside of Georgia and what voter GA has been able to do to uncover the fraud in Georgia. You look at the fact that little by little we've been told to keep all the facts away from each other. The mail-in ballots, which, by the way, there was a study done by the Hartford Institute that said 17% of the ballots by their own admission were fraudulent in the 2020 election. 17%. 17% of ballots that were, let's say that 17% went to President Trump. Would you not be as upset because he was elected because of that 17%? You'd be asking the same questions. And so as we look at and we set aside our personal differences, right? And the lies and the slander and all the other stuff that I get to deal with on a regular basis, and we look at the facts, just the facts of the case, that's it. I can take a USB drive and I can flip the votes in the system without ever touching, without ever putting my hand on inside of a Dominion machine. Mark is going to show you that. That's a fact. That's not hyperbolic. That's not made up. That's a fact. When we look at the ballots and the ballot paper and the evidence that was actually presented and what happened in Arizona, and I've heard some people in here say, hey, listen, it's not happening in Custer County. But the problem is that we have an obligation to find out, to be curious. We're curious people. And the machines do not, their one job is to count the vote. So why the complexities and be told that these systems are absolutely perfect and it run from the county clerk and recorder to a USB drive to Seidel, and Seidel goes to Edison, the Edison goes to the media. Why do we need something so complex when the cost of that complexity is roughly 90% more? There was a study that was done in Texas that said, hey, what would it cost us to do hand counts at all 37 precincts? All 37 precincts in a presidential election. And they came to the conclusion that it would cost about $271,000. Well, how many machines can you buy versus have people in your community that can come together? Use this as an opportunity to come together. We don't even allow for the curiosity by this group of people that bully with impunity and make threats of we're going to sue you. And they use the same dog whistles of democracy. Democracy, democracy, democracy is a threat to democracy. And we're not allowed to be curious when we see anomalies. We're not allowed to look under the hood when we discover anomalies in a neighboring county of Mesa, Colorado. And then you have people that have put a lot on the line who are experts that get slandered by guys that write articles for left-wing rags that 200 people read. And they become the residential experts. They become the people that get to tell us as Americans how our elections are supposed to go, running interference for those people that say to you the elections are safe and secure. But we're not allowed to ask questions. It's the same thing that we see in these radical agendas and with our children or at the border. We can't have a conversation about it because we politicized the very thing that is the essence of what makes our country great. You should be able to have a voice.
Joe, we've got a number of hands up that we'd like to allow to ask you some questions.
Sure, I'm all for it.
You had some hands up? Oh, they're online, Kevin. Do you see?
I had 3 and now I have 1.
Okay, one person online has a question.
Now we have Caleb online.
Caleb online, do you have a question?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah. So one of my question is, if this does find its way to the Supreme Court, and if they do rule favorably of getting rid of these online voting machines, what's the plan and what's the course of action to correct it?
Well, I mean, I think we as people in our communities have to get ahead of it. I mean, I think that we have an obligation to run our own elections. The elections are supposed to have clean hands. They're supposed to be decentralized all the way down to the county and precinct level. That's the way it has always been designed to be. Now they're centralizing it on a state level, and the feds are walking in trying to centralize it based on rules, not based on laws, but based on rules change the rules and say, you're not allowed to have access, you're not allowed to ask questions. We are the only ones that are allowed to look at it. So getting ahead of this and saying, listen, let's be more thoughtful about this. Let's look at what's happening in the elections, and let's make a decision at a local level that this is a contentious issue. I mean, why can't we just take the issue off the table and say, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to hand count the ballots. We're going to have mail-in ballots be specific to you. You just have to ask for one. We're not going to send you a mail-in ballot. You have to ask for it. Simple. And then you have signature verification that makes sure that the person that actually did it wasn't muled in or convinced or coerced in order to cast that ballot, which we've heard time and again. So I think that we have to start it now. We don't have to wait for the Supreme Court. We don't. And we keep putting ourselves in this position where we feel like we have to ask daddy. We do not have to do that. There is no rule of law that states that as a county, you cannot say, listen, there is a mountain of evidence, even in Colorado, that doesn't make sense, and it makes a large percentage of our population in our community uncomfortable, and it's tearing our community apart. So here's what we're going to do. We're just going to get rid of the machines. We're going to hand count paper ballot. You come in, give an ID, and we're going to make sure, based on the fact that we know that the voter rolls are bloated in Colorado and that they have not been fixed, and based on the fact that they've tried to centralize these elections across different states, that you just make a decision to take your voice back and say, look, we're just going to do it this way. Because that is ultimately what needs to happen.
Yeah, one more question for you, but before I
the audience, I think I saw a hand right over in here. Yes, come on forward here, ma'am, and introduce yourself. And
Fremont County. USB drives are scaring me right now. Who has access to them that can use them in our voting machines? Who can do that?
It's far worse than, and that's what I'm.
Okay.
Yeah.
we have another subject matter expert, Colonel Sean
Smith.
Sean Smith. Are you there, Sean?
Yes, I came back.
Colonel Smith, are you here?
Yes, sir, I'm present. Can you hear me all right?
Go ahead and speak a little loudly. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. How about now? Is that better?
Great. And
okay,
just a little for us.
Did you say introduce myself?
Please, thank you.
Okay. My name is Sean Smith. I am a retired Air Force officer. I'm one of the executive officers of the nonprofit, nonpartisan group Cause of America. We do nothing but work election integrity and try to support states in restoring election integrity in their own local domains. We started here, but the founders, other than Mike, all started here in Colorado as just volunteers. And in fact, I'm still a volunteer, but my background in the military was an operations officer. I was in space and missile operations and operated all manner of sensitive technology involved in special access programs and special technical operations. I also was trained to develop, design, and execute and report on the operational testing for complex computer-based weapon systems. And then I wrapped up my career at the Pentagon under the Office of Secretary of Defense, with responsibility for a portfolio overseeing the operational tests of all space systems in the Department of Defense, except for satellite communications. So all the ground-based radars, space-based radars, every single space control weapon system, global positioning system, etc. I'm exquisitely familiar with the threat posed by nation states, particularly cyber. I wrote the guidelines for operational testing and threat representation in operational testing for space systems in the Department of Defense. And I spent about a year after my retirement, 2017 and 18, supporting a program by the Directorate of Operational Test and Evaluation for the Department of Defense called Adversarial Assessment, where we were looking at what had been exfiltrated and exploited in defense organizations and national security organizations, including governmental and contractor and subcontractor, that had compromised weapon systems, intellectual property, technological advantage, etc. So between all of that, I'm very familiar with both the requirements for adequate testing of a computer-based system and the threats to those systems and what it looks like when they're adequately tested and what it looks like when they're not. And that was the background with which I accidentally became an election integrity researcher, advocate, and activist. So it was right here in Colorado, 2020. I was sitting at home after voting. I read an article about voter turnout, and I started downloading data from the Secretary of State site and doing my own analysis and determined that there were some real problems with our voter rolls. There was a rate of growth that was completely unexplained by population. It was historically atypical. I saw, a election over election, like election over like election, increase of 140% in primary turnout and just immense growth in the voter rolls. And then I found, the movement of voters between counties, et cetera. So we could talk, you and I, we could talk about the problems in Colorado's election systems, which are not unique to Colorado, for days. And I could give you example after example. I could show you the lies that have been told by the Secretary of State, and I'd be happy to do that under oath. And they know that and will not call me, although Chris Beall will sit in court and run his mouth. But I will show the lies that they have told about our election systems, including to public officials. For example, Rio Blanco County commissioners who Judd Choate falsely told that they were required to have accessible devices. In fact, that's not true under federal law, and I'd be happy to explain that. But what I wanted to talk to you all tonight, the three of you gentlemen, is not about the general system. I can, unfortunately, in the Zoom call, I can see the comments from people. There's a real clown show from people there who don't do their homework. I'll show you the evidence for every single word I'm saying, and I'll say it all under oath. I want to talk about your specific voting systems. We could talk about Mesa County, Colorado, and the evidence that was found there by 3 cybersecurity professionals. Not even. So you've got Doug Gould, and then Jeff O'Donnell, and then of course Professor Emeritus Computer Science at Texas A&M. Dr. Walter Daugherty. That's 120 years of cyber professional expertise, including certified forensic expertise, that looked at the system in Mesa, which was running the same software you were using much of the same hardware that was being used in Custer County. And they found egregious violations of certification standards, including software that was not supposed to be on the systems at all, software that was configured explicitly to delete the audit logs that are required to be preserved by law. When I came down last year, I think, and spoke to some citizens there at the invitation of those citizens in Custer County, I talked about your specific hardware being used in your voting system, not Dominion in the nation, not Dominion in the state of Colorado. I'm talking about your equipment. And I want to refer to some of that because they've changed some of it with the update to 5.17. But I want to specifically talk about one component, and we could go through many of them, but just one component in your hardware. So, and anybody who's at home or you there, gentlemen, can follow along if you like. But if you look in the Secretary of State site, you can find a list of the voting equipment that's been certified. It's called a voting system inventory. It's organized by county. They no longer tell you the role or function of the computers, the specific serial numbers in that system, but if you know what a specific type is used for, you can identify it. For example, when I look at the Dell Latitude 3420 laptop in your voting system in Custer County, I can tell you right away, looking at the configuration, that's an ICBA machine. That's an ImageCast voter activation system. It's used to program the smart cards that go into the ICX devices so that someone gets the correct ballot style pulled up when they go to use the touchscreen ICX. The ICXs, by the way, are running the same software and the same firmware, substantially the same, maybe a slight version change, that was identified by J. Alex Halderman, professor of computer science at University of Michigan, an expert witness in the Curling versus Raffensperger case, as being vulnerable. 9 critical vulnerabilities he identified in one device that were sufficient to overturn an election because you could use them to corrupt other components in the voting system and not just flip votes or change votes on the ICX itself. When Halderman tried to present that information to Dominion voting systems and to CISA, which is responsible for the security of election infrastructure since 2017, they are responsible for those kind of notifications. When he tried to present that to them in April of 2021, they refused. In fact, CISA never put out a notice until almost a year later. And they put out an ICSA, it's an information or it's a industrial control system advisory, because those systems, election infrastructure falls under the government facilities subsector. So that's the reporting channel they use. They essentially stated that these vulnerabilities existed in that version, and stated that they had not had any opportunity or didn't have time to evaluate any other systems. They recommended mitigation measures, including complete audits. And none of those measures, not one single mitigation measure, was taken by the Secretary of State of Colorado with respect to the voting systems in Colorado. Haldeman stated in his declaration and his subsequent declaration, or his report and subsequent declaration, that Colorado was one of the states potentially affected. CISA waited a year to put out the advisory. Dominion refused to accept the report so that they would have no obligation under their contracts with every jurisdiction in the country that uses them to report the potential vulnerability and the potential defect in their system. And despite CISA putting out that report, nobody in Colorado did anything about it, not one thing. Now I've also heard, and I've heard people like Matt Crane, the executive director of Colorado County Clerks Association, who has been, from my perspective, just a mouthpiece for the Secretary of State. I have heard him state that the voting systems in use in Colorado don't have the ability to contact the internet or to connect to any external network. That is a lie. And I called him on that lie at a meeting in Denver, Colorado at the Independence Institute. And then he changed his story to, well, they're secured. So let's start with the lie. First of all, your equipment that you have in your county right now, when I came down there last year, I told the citizens there about your equipment, and that, in fact, you had a tabulator that not only had, and a tabulator is the device that the ballots get scanned into. They're called ICCs in Colorado, ImageCast Central, in the Dominion systems. So you had an ICC in Custer County that not only had a wireless modem built into it, when there's not a single computer system or a single computerized voting system in Colorado with any legal authorization to use a wireless networking device. So it was deliberately configured by Dominion voting systems, ordered with that wireless networking device in it. And I'll give you the serial number or the service tag. It was 2159 HD2. You can look it up for yourself. Not only did it have the wireless networking device in it, it was registered in Australia. That means that there was some organization or entity in Australia that had the authority to connect to the Intel active management technology components on that computer the moment it was connected to any network with an external connection. That's first of all. Now, a lot of your equipment was replaced with the 5.17 modification, which was recently put in place. But you still have wireless networking devices, which is, I think particularly suspicious. In Mesa County, again, a county in Colorado, which, like all the other counties, had no authority whatsoever to connect any of those voting system components to any external network for any amount of time or any purpose, there were 36 wireless networking devices built into the voting system in Mesa County. In your county, I found at least 2 components, and you still have components. And I'll give you the serial number because it's listed in the Secretary of State's listing for 5.17. So if you will look up, or at any time, you can look this up, and the serial number or service tag number is 5 Romeo Victor 4 Juliet Hotel 2. That is a Dell Optiplex 7440 all-in-one, which means likely that it is being used for an ICC. And it has an M2, which is a format, an M2 wireless networking card built into it. Now, if you can find anybody in the Secretary of State's office or in Dominion voting systems, including the representative, the sales representative, I think it was Dave Stahl maybe. If you can find anybody who can explain to you why they explicitly ordered a configuration of that computer for your voting system with wireless networking built into it, then I would be so grateful to hear a reasonable explanation for that, because I've yet to hear one. In fact, all I've heard is people deny that they even have them, or tell us, and this is I agree with every word that Mark and Mike said. This would be hilarious if it wasn't sad. But your clerk and your staff in your county have no control over whether or not that wireless networking device is enabled, because they have no control over the BIOS on that device. Not only do the systems are they configured with BOCC, which is I'm sorry, am I talking over somebody?
Sean, we do have a number of questions that are
Sure.
being presented, and maybe you could address some of those questions. There were three there online, Kevin. You have to.
One that came and went 3 times now was actually Mr. Hedberg. Do you still have your hand up?
Jordan, do you have a question?
Yeah, this is Larry Forgy.
Larry?
Yeah.
Could you and then present your question?
Yeah, I'm from BOCC County in Colorado, in case you didn't know that. I think there's a lot of evidence, and I don't know how anybody can doubt the evidence. But I think some of these people with questions, they're just saying, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? Well, here's my point, and in a question form. Any system that requires an expert to operate, or a company to conduct, or an elected official to control, is first off a conflict of interest, because an elected official is naturally, now I'm not going to generalize and group them all in, but government is a necessary evil. We all understand that. And power corrupts. So the possibilities that an elected official is going to be looking out after their best interests is definitely there. And that conflict of interest is real. A company, not generalizing again, but a company is after their interests, their financial business interest. Experts naturally are above everybody else and says nobody knows as much as them. This is conflict of interest. The only system that works in a free country, a liberty-loving country, is the people voting in one precinct, volunteers of we the people counting those votes. That's the only system that works in a liberty-loving system. That's it. That's why it was set up that way, and it worked up until 2012. And what's your response to that?
Thank you, Larry. Colonel Smith, do you have a comment on that?
No, I agree wholeheartedly with what he said. And I think the thing that people have to understand, so in the first place, right, our government is not rule over us. We are not governed. The government governs the government officials and entities. We rule over the government. That's the nature of our constitutional form of government. And we're guaranteed explicitly in that constitution a Republican form of government, which means we choose our elected officials. That is an enumerated right. Okay, that's an enumerated authority to the people in the Constitution. There is an implied right with that. That is the transparency necessary for us to verify each of us for ourselves. We have no obligation to trust government, and history shows, and political philosophy has expertly demonstrated, and this was the arguments illustrated in the Federalist Papers and the basis of our Constitution. We have no reason to trust our government. Our government cannot insist that we trust it, nor that we trust anything that we can't verify for ourselves.
Thank you very much, Colonel.
There's no way to do that with electronic voting systems. I will tell you unequivocally, they are built for fraud. They are not built for transparency. and what little possibility for transparency we had has been obstructed. The Secretary of State explicitly worked with the General Assembly to obstruct the ability, even for the chief election officials in counties, the clerks, to maintain the records, the voting records that they are required by both federal and state law. They are prohibited from making and maintaining copies of those records, despite those voting records being a requirement under both federal and state law. There's so much conflict and there is so much control being exercised out of Denver that there is no way for you as commissioners to have any confidence, I think, other than by hand counting the paper ballots, which, as Mark described, if you receive those through the system we have, which effectively no safeguards, right? The signature verification is an absolute sham. And because you have no idea the basis for any of the signatures in the score system, let alone what he described, that we would never allow in a court system. We would never allow an amateur to verify a signature, not for any important function. You wouldn't let them verify the signature on a baseball, let alone one that's going to be involved in determining who our representative government is. And then you have the problem that you have no video at drop boxes, or nobody reviews the video, which is true. 200,000 hours per election. No one reviews it. If you're a citizen who tries to get access to it, they try to charge you exorbitant fees. And then you have SCORE, a system that effectively has no oversight, that is not externally audited, that in 2015 had security issues that were reported under cover and not publicly released by the legislative auditor. In 2020 was acknowledged by the Synac Corporation doing a pro bono evaluation for Trevor Timmons, who was a CISO under the Secretary of State. They never told the public, they never told Colorado public officials, they never told you that they found security vulnerabilities in our voter registration system. So in that environment, and for the people who are saying there's no evidence, we published the evidence. We did a citizens canvass and verified a minimum, conservatively, of 8% statewide error in the voter rolls and the voting history. Minimum, absolute minimum. And we provided all of those affidavits to the Attorney General of Colorado, who was obligated to investigate because they were provided under a sworn affidavit as a cover. He had a statutory responsibility and refused to investigate. Same thing was provided to 3 different DAs, and they refused to investigate.
To Eric here, who's going to do a presentation. Thank you for your work in this regard. I meant Mark. Yep.
And Clay, we'll get to you and your question here shortly. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, all right. So we do have a problem. If anyone knows those that said they didn't think there was a problem, if you call them, text them, please ask them to come back. This is really important to have these discussions. If they will, are they here? Is someone still here?
Yeah.
Well, this is something we should all be discussing, right? And the facts are the facts. So even though we may not want to see some of the facts or admit some of the facts, it doesn't make them any less of a fact. So let's just discuss this, and let's focus on reality. This is our reality right now, okay? So it's not a Democrat Republican issue. I've got if you look on handcountroadshow.org, my website, here's a video on there. It's 12 minutes of Democrats making exactly the same claims that the crazy fascist right has been making, right? And everyone says they're off their rocker. It's the same stuff. The systems are no different. We all know there's a problem. The problem is there's a cartel, election cartel, that is benefiting from it and is screwing on the rest of us. So here's what we used to have. We used to have physical voter registration, physical validation. Okay, the voter registration happened. You walked into the county building, you filled out the voter registration card. That card went in a stack for your precinct. Then election time came, they took that precinct stack and it went to the precinct. All those cards went to the precinct. Then they also printed out a paper poll book, which listed all the people in the precinct that can vote at that precinct. Then election day, you show up at your precinct. They already know that you're registered in the precinct because you're on the paper. Turns out paper can't be hacked from anywhere. I ran, doesn't matter. You can't have paper, right? So it's there, and the voter registration cards are there. So you show up, you give them an ID, they look for your name on the paper poll book. They find it there, there's a little box, you sign your name again there. Now, some people with smaller brains will say, oh my gosh, that's a signature, and you said signatures don't matter. It's a physical signature that you watch them sign. That's a big difference from getting an envelope in the mail that you have no idea who signed. And you have no idea who filled the ballot out, because it turns out when someone shows up at a precinct to sign their paper poll book, how do we know who signed it? Because they're standing right in front of you, so you know that's how you know who signed it. And then you hand them a ballot. And how do you know who filled the ballot out? Well, they're holding it. They're the ones that fill the ballot out. Can you see how we have physical verification of those things? Really different from what we have now in this virtual system. So you vote, you put it in a box. At the end of the day, the box is open and everyone takes the ballots out right there and counts them. Can you imagine that? They don't go to another room. They don't go to another building. They don't go to another city. Because when you have time and space between things in an election, those are areas that someone can abuse it. So that's why you don't take it to another room even to count it, because how do you know what happened between the two rooms? You don't wait until the next day to count it, because what happened overnight? There's no reason to wait. You minimize the amount of abuse by minimizing the space and time. And if you look at the election systems we have now, look at what's happened over the past 20 years or so, everything possible to increase the amount of space and time between everything that's done. And everything is hidden from us. That's the problem. So, and then the reporting would happen right there. Obviously, the hand audit, everyone's counting them by hand right there. So we get 100% hand audit. The hand count right there that night was the audit. You counted the paper right there, and you guys counted them in your precinct. People that live down the street from you counted them. And if you wanted to do it, you could be there as a witness. Now, I think we can improve that process. We can put cameras over everything. 20 years ago, we didn't have all that technology that was affordable. Now, cameras are so cheap, you get them for 20 or 30 bucks. You get a really nice GoPro-like camera for 70 bucks, put it right on top, and you could watch the whole process. So this whole argument of, I don't trust my neighbors counting my vote, I've heard that. I've heard clerks say that the clerk doesn't trust the citizens to count their own votes, which is bizarre because they're not in the place to trust the citizens. In fact, the citizens are supposed to be able to trust the clerk. So put a camera over it. Then you don't have to worry about trust, right? Because you just watch the video. And then our clerks could be heroes by just putting it all out there on the website. Then no one has to wonder anything. They don't have to ask anything. They just go to the website. They can watch the whole precinct. Especially if you ran for an election and lost like 30 votes. Wouldn't you want to know the answers? Are you going to come up with $300,000 to sue to try to get access to the ballots that take a year for you to even get access to? And all they do is run through the same garbage machines you don't trust in the first place? It's absurd. Can you imagine if we just took everything that happened on election night, put it out on the county website, the scans of all the ballots, all the video footage, everything, and you could just recount it yourself, get some neighbors together, and all your friends, everyone can recount the thing. I mean, that's how easy this should be. But that's what happened back in the day. We did it all physically, and then they would count, they'd get the results in the precinct, and they'd call those into the count. Really simple. That right there gave us high transparency, and that's what gave us our freedom. So I'm going to explain a few important concepts here. Really simple. I'm just going to give you some different words you may not have heard of. Attack vector. Okay. Here's what an attack vector is. That door is an attack vector on that house. If a bad guy wants to get in the house, they're going to go through that door. Okay. So the threat vector, that's the bad guy, goes through the attack vector. Okay. That house has windows, 4 windows. Those 4 windows are 4 additional attack vectors. Oh my gosh, why didn't someone tell me the screen was? All right, let me go back. All right, gosh, I had all these great slides for you. Anyway, there's the slide right there. Physical voter registration, physical validation, physical tabulation, 100% hand audit, and physical reporting. Okay, there's our high transparency and our freedom. There's your house, much better. There's your attack vector, the door. There's your threat actor. The threat actor goes through the attack vector, okay? This house has 4 windows in it also, and a door. That is a total of 5 attack vectors in this house now. Okay, the attack surface is the total number of attack vectors in a system. Okay, check out these 2 houses. If you're a bad guy, which one would you like to be able to break into? Which one are you gonna go for? The one with only a door or the one with a door and 4 windows to break into? I'll take the one on the left, okay? It's more attractive to attack it because it has far more attack vectors. So threat actors target our election. Believe it or not, there's a reason why people might want to manipulate an election. They might want that one law to pass so they can put this huge hotel up in the town and make a whole lot of money, or they might want to get someone in office that'll do some other deal, or maybe, send billions of our dollars to Ukraine, now they would never do that, right? Of course not. So we don't just have one threat actor though. Yeah, this many threat actors everywhere. Everyone would want a chance to manipulate an election if you're a bad guy, right? Ultimate power, ultimate control. Now, we don't just have this for an election system and attack surface. Here's what we created. Over the past 20 years, we have added windows everywhere. We have added abuse vectors all over this system, okay? That's the problem. And so it's really easy to find a way to fix it. Reduce the amount of attack vectors. That's all we have to do. If you reduce the attack vectors, you reduce the fraud. So we are also in 5th generation warfare. If you didn't realize this, there is something very sinister going on in our country. It's not just about an election if you haven't quite figured that out yet. Okay, there's a much bigger picture here. If you have not read these books, you need to read these books. You will be a different person after you absorb the information in these books. You will reach a level of awareness that is higher than you are at even right now. And although it might seem scary to realize how really bad things are, it will empower you if you understand why we are where we are. And in these books, tells you how to combat that. We're in a war. This helps you understand what the battlefield looks like, and it gives you information about how to use certain types of non-violent weapons, but how to counter the tactics being used against all of us. It's deeper. This thing gets real deep. So here, check this out. This is some evidence found. I don't know if it's going to play. Oh, it didn't play. All right. So I'll get this video on the website. So here's what's happened. Our systems have been made virtual over the past 20 years. ERIC is one of them, right? That's the Electronic Registration Information Center. They handle all your voter rolls. That is a problem. They handled the voter rolls for 32 states plus BC not too long ago. Okay, that's the voter registration records, right? And they claim, we'll make sure no duplicate entries in, we'll make sure there's no dead people in the list. Turns out when you start checking the word, they're not doing what they said they're doing. So this little tiny company in a little tiny office that no one's found any people in controls the voter registration records for 32 states plus DC. Up until now, they're down to 19. People are getting smart. Colorado needs to get out of ERIC as fast as possible and return everything to the county. So let me show you some stuff here around SQL map. This was sent in by an Iranian whistleblower. And this is a video. I got screenshots of the video so I can explain to you what you're seeing in the video because it's so fast. This utility was downloaded from the internet. It is a utility that helps the good guy make sure a database is protected. Okay, it finds weaknesses in a database, you can correct them. But a bad guy could use it to also find weaknesses in a database system. And here's what they did. They went and grabbed voter registration, voter rolls from an online database. And by the way, your voter rolls are online. They are on the cloud. A lot of times in like a Microsoft Azure environment or AWS, Amazon services, they're up in the cloud somewhere. You don't know where they are. Your county clerk doesn't actually know physically where those voter rolls are stored because they don't want anyone to know where they're stored. Not the clerks, but companies that run all this. So what they did is they grabbed the database. Then they went to our FFF.gov website. It's a site we pay for with our tax dollars to help our military and overseas citizens vote, which we want to do, right? But here's what someone did not think. What would a bad guy do with this? That's the problem. Every law we have, no one thought, what would a bad guy do? Or what could a bad guy do? And here's what they did. We can see it right in the video. They go to the website. They indicate right there that they're a member of Uniformed Services. Well, they clicked on it, so it must be true, right? Look how easy this is. I mean, if you're a bad guy, you can follow the law. If it says right there, under penalty of perjury, do you care if you're a bad guy? Turns out bad guys don't really care so much. If they're gonna go rob a bank and there's a sign on the door that says, no firearms allowed, yeah, I think they're gonna say, oh, darn. I can't bring my gun into this bank. I guess I gotta go to a different bank. No, they don't follow the law anyway, right? So that's what these people do. Check this out. They pick a state, they grab some of the data, and they use all the video very quickly. There's the data. They pick an election. They pops a ballot because we created this because we're stupid. They vote on the ballot and then they save the PDF file, which is the ballot. And you know, in this folder under home, mail-in voting, ballots, Alaska, there are 134,728 PDF ballots. So tell me what honest person would ever have 134,728 PDF ballots in an Alaska folder on their computer. And then they went up a level and they happened to show all these other state folders. This is the 2020 election, just so you know. And look at that, Colorado's right there to the right of the mouse there. And they went into Colorado folder briefly, and I didn't grab a screenshot of it, but it's about, I think there are over 100,000 PDF ballots in the Colorado folder. So that means that those ballots could have been inserted into our election. And this person could have made them all right on their computer. You realize we've set up the system so stupidly that this type of manipulation can happen totally outside the county without the county's knowledge. And one person in Iran could have manipulated our entire election. That's how stupid we are. That's why we have to disconnect from this system and take it back to the county. Seriously, we have to pull our heads out of our bottoms at some point and just take control of it. It's as simple as that. So Texas started looking at their voter rolls to find out what's going on, because turns out the county's not looking at it, because why would the county look at it? The state took it from them. And then the state's not looking at it because the state outsourced it to this other company. So no one's watching. Can you imagine that? So the citizens started downloading the voter rolls every day, and they started looking for changes, and they were noticing changes in their voter rolls on a day-by-day basis. People that were shown as having voted on 5/29, the next day they checked, those people are disappeared. Someone was going in there making changes to the voter rolls in real time. The county had no idea and no explanation because they don't have control of it. They're dumbfounded. That's by design. That's what these smart people have done. Seriously, we have to stop this. All over, same discrepancies. They looked at this database here. It should have had information up to the 22nd of April. 3 hours later, someone wiped out 2 days of information out of the database in 3 hours. Someone was actively in the database in real time. The county had no clue. That's crazy. The county doesn't know. They claim, I don't know. They truly don't. In a lot of cases. New York State, someone grabbed all the voter IDs for the state, and they graphed them in a particular way, in a histogram, and they found a pattern in the voter IDs. A pattern, it's very strange. I'll give you an example of, here's what I think they found. So if I was gonna give you voter IDs in here, I would assign you 1,000, or like 1000, and then 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, and so on, okay? Then if I was a bad guy and I wanted to have a group of voter registrations that I could just turn on and turn off at will, I might put in a whole bunch of additionals, but I might start those with a 2, like 2000, 2001, and so on. And then I might have maybe another level, like a 3, it starts with a 3, okay? And then if I'm a bad guy and I'm getting real close and I really need to activate a whole bunch of additional records to be able to inject votes, if I had to do them one by one, it would take a very long time for that process to run and I'd get caught. But if I just had to tell the computer system to change anything that starts with a 2 to activate that record, that's one command. And it happens like that. So they found this pattern in there. Now it's not exactly the 100200 pattern. It's a very smart pattern. So you should check this out and you'll see what they've done in the New York State voter rolls. I think we may have the problem in far more than just New York.
You got another expert that wants to talk and we're getting short.
Okay.
Clay Patrick.
Okay, play free. Yeah, I do want, let me show this Dominion thing. This is real important. Listen, I got a lot of information and I could spend hours and hours and show you the evidence that shows that all these areas, these 4 legs to the stool are being manipulated. It's not like they necessarily could be. We know they could be, and we've got proof that they are being manipulated right here. So I'm going to jump right in and then we'll let Clay take it over because this will be perfect. Clay actually was one of the testers. He worked at a testing lab for electronic voting systems. I'm going to show you, and I'm going to skip a lot of my presentation, unfortunately, because we just don't have a lot of time. I had a lot of really, really good important stuff, unfortunately. So let's start with this right here. Clay, you'll appreciate this. It's all built for you. And I don't know if we'll have audio, but we're going to try here. Let me see if I can play this video from Dominion Voting Systems. I don't know if we'll get audio. Okay. No audio, but let me change my audio source. I'm going to go right to my speakers on my computer, and then I will hold this up and see if we get audio. I really want you to hear that too, because this guy says, our system, this is Dominion, our system cannot flip votes from one candidate to another. And I'm just going to pull that back up again and give it one more shot.
It is not physically possible for our machines to switch votes from one candidate to the other. It is not physically possible for our machines to switch votes from one candidate to the other.
You get it? It is not physically possible for our machines to flip votes from one candidate to another. Okay? Let's see. Do you think Dominion might be lying to us?
Yeah.
Now, we don't know for sure, right? We've all heard that, you know, you can flip votes and you put in USB drives and flip votes get flipped, right? We've all heard about vote flipping. How about I just show you, right, a Dominion system? Now, I was the lead forensic investigator for Tina Peters. So when Doug Gould was mentioned, the Mason Report 1 and 2, this was my work that Doug also duplicated and wrote the reports. So I know it pretty darn well, considering I've spent longer looking at Dominion voting system, probably than anyone in the world other than the people that work at Dominion. And likewise, if they want to question me under oath, oh, I'm so ready. Let's go, because I got a lot of questions for them too. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and log in the password. I'm not going to explain how easy it is. So let's go in. Here's what I saw, and a lot of people probably have Windows computers here. Are you shocked if it's just a Windows computer? Right. Okay, so I saw Microsoft SQL Server tools. Who is an IT person in here? Is anyone an IT person? Computer guy? Girl? No? One? Okay. Okay, so SQL Server, SQL Server, also known as, is a Microsoft product. It's a database. And a database is a piece of software that stores information. So in a voting system, you would have a database, and that database might store maybe information about the election, like the people on the ballot, and it might also store maybe the votes, you know, as it tabulates the votes. And that's what the system does. But I saw SQL Server tools on here, and here's the problem. Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio is a piece of software that is a backdoor to a SQL database. And this backdoor software is installed on the voting system. That is shocking. Now, as an IT person that manages databases, I have SQL Server Management Studio, and I use it to manage the back end of a lot of databases. But on a voting system, that would be the stupidest of things to put on there, because that would give someone a path right into the back end of the database to make changes outside of the Dominion software, bypassing any protections claims to be in place. So that'd be a shock to have on this system. I thought, why on earth is that on there? Does it even work? Maybe they installed it and deleted it and the icon's still there. So I clicked on it, and I was shocked that the program starts right up. And then it asks for a password, or I can just click connect without putting a password in. I thought, there is no way it's going to let me in without another password. There's no way. So I figured, just, well, you know, for, you know what, and giggles, I'll do it. I clicked it, and oh my gosh, it just let me in without a password. So if I'm a bad person and I'm in the county, I now have access to the back end of the voting system database. That's shocking. So then you look at databases, and they come right up. And I found the Mesa County General. It's the first one I went to. I'm showing you everything I did when I got this thing up and running for the first time. And this is the image, and this is the before image right from Tina Peters before the Secretary of State and the voting system vendor showed up. This is the image they didn't want any of you to see or anyone to see. So let's take a look in the tables, and tables are areas in the database that store information. Different information is in different tables. So I saw this one called DBO.choice, and I thought choice is kind of ballot. It sounds like a ballot election type of thing. And I clicked on this to select the top 1,000 rows. I wanted to see if could I see inside this thing. And it pulled it right up. I mean, didn't give me an error message, not an access denied, nothing, just didn't even beep. It just showed it to me. And I saw choices on here. It looks like choices on the ballots. And I thought, okay, we must be looking at some type of ballot definition. And I scrolled all the way down and saw, oh yeah, there's Biden. And I figured there's gotta be a Trump somewhere on here too. And this is not a Biden v. Trump thing. There's all kinds of other candidates here too, and measures and everything. But I looked up and I saw that there's a Trump. And I thought Trump had an ID number of a 2. Biden has an ID number of a 1. And each of these other choices also have unique ID numbers. Computers work with numbers, not with names. So there's always a mapping pretty much between a name and a number in a database. It's normal. The reason why Biden would have a 1 might be because that's the first entry that was set up when they programmed the ballot. And then the next entry was probably Trump, and then they're numbered in consecutive order, and that's probably why that is. So it's not like they chose the D1 for any reason. But anyway, I thought, gosh, if I just flip the 1 and the 2, could I just flip the election? Would it be that easy without having to try to figure out how to move a bunch of votes or even know where the votes are? What if I just changed those 2 mappings? Would that flip the results of the election? Well, according to our Dominion guy, it can't be done, right? Because their system cannot physically flip votes from one candidate to another. Yet I'm going to see if I can physically do that with their system, with the software they built into the voting system that they didn't tell anyone about. So let's try this. First, what we want to do is we want to see what the results of the election are before I try to make any changes. So let's pull that up. And there's a little procedure in here that'll let us see the contest results. And it asks for a number. I didn't know what a good starting number was, so I just figured 1. I didn't know what 1 would do. I figured, show me the first contest. I don't know what it is. And it happened to be the presidential contest, which is fantastic. That's what I want. What a coincidence. And look at that. Biden has 31,000, Trump has 56,000. Okay. Now that we know what the results of the election are, let's see if the Dominion are a bunch of liars. So we're going to go here to the same thing. And remember, we're using software that they installed. There's no hacking going on. I literally am clicking on buttons on their own system. Okay, so we're going to select edit. Let's see if we can edit this. Okay, it kind of pulls up a spreadsheet looking thing, kind of like Microsoft Excel. We're going to go to the bottom here, and there's Biden, and there's the 1. Now I'm going to change the 1 to a 2. It let me type in the 2 without giving me an error message. Now I figured at this point, when I press enter, it's going to say access denied, you cannot do this, bells are going to go off. I pressed enter. How simple. It took it. So now I'm going to go up here and we're going to find Trump, and I'm going to change that to a 1. So all it was change 2 numbers in the database. Very simple. Okay. Now let's go back and let's pull this report and let's see if the Dominion are liars. What do you know? Biden 56, Trump 31. So I guess their system can physically flip votes from one candidate to another. That was kind of concerning to me that it was that easy to do. And I looked further and there's no trace of this happening. So they have all these requirements. They have to have log files in an election system, but log files don't do you any good if they don't log this type of activity. And it's also interesting that they turned off one of the logging features conveniently on this database and all databases. Yeah. One lie after another, and everything I looked at on the system showed me there were lie after lie after lie. Now, someone might say, well, only someone that knows how to use a computer could do that. Well, if you happen to have someone smart in accounting, they could do that. But what if you had someone that didn't know anything about computers? Who knows the least about computers in this room? Raise your hand. Is your husband here? Yes. Where is he? Raise your hand, husband. All right, come up here. Come on up. All right. So your wife says you don't know anything about computers. Is she correct? She's correct. All right. Now, have you ever inserted a flash drive before? You know, this is now the second person ever that has been in this presentation that said they never inserted a flash drive. I can show someone how to do it before. So I'll show you how to do it. Okay, there's a USB slot. This is a USB flash drive. Okay, everyone's seen one of these before, right? All you're gonna do is just slide it right into there. Okay? And with a T on the top there. Real simple. Just you can do it, Harold. You got it.
Be brave.
He did it. And watch the screen. This is what the crazy thing. Hold on.
Okay.
I think I clicked the. There we
Harold
go.
touched it.
I clicked the button while I was holding the laptop. All right, I just plugged it back. So hands are up here. Watch the screen and you will see what this is doing. It's pulling up another backdoor utility on this Dominion voting system. Number 2 backdoor utility, and this one was a little hidden. This was in one of the millions of files on the hard drive. And what it's doing is it's going in and it's changing some numbers in the database using another backdoor utility that Dominion so conveniently installed on their voting system that's supposed to be very secure. And it's done. Now, watch this. I'm gonna pull the results of the election again. Watch what happens to it. What do you know? Biden, 31,000, Trump, 56. It flipped them back just by plugging a USB flash drive in. So you just flipped an election physically using Dominion's system after Dominion said it can't be done. What do you think? You think they lied? Of course they did, right? And the crazy thing is, all these other things they lie about. Now, you might have heard of Michigan. Sheriff Darley started getting a little bit of investigation going on Dominion. And we got a release of emails internal to Dominion. And guess what else they lied about? And I've got a big long list. In the emails, do you know that they have a whole bunch of Serbian developers that write the Dominion software? Do you know they have Serbian employees at Dominion? Do you know that those Serbian employees are working on Dominion systems while we're in the middle of an election? Do you know that people in Serbia have access to our election and they're discussing it back and forth in emails? I mean, we've all heard the claims, but when I actually read the emails and saw the internal Dominion emails talking about the Serbian developers, do you know that they also have companies in Taiwan that are making specialized firmware for some of their systems, and they've actually given their source code to all these companies in Taiwan also? I mean, this is absolutely insane. They seem to tell us that they're a Denver, Colorado company, local US-based voting system company. Yet, if you look at the number of people they have, foreign nationals, that aren't even in the United States, not only programming the very system that counts all of our votes, but also actively connected to our election system during election, handling all this. And yes, as Joe said, they are changing versions of software without the customers knowing, without the counties knowing. They are flat out lying to counties. The evidence is all there. So for anyone who wants to look at it, it is really easy to see there is more to the story. And we at some point have to realize people are lying to us. This voting system vendor is flat out lying. Now, I've also talked to insiders at Denver elections that told me years ago, when I was out in Pueblo County, that Dominion was already planning to file bankruptcy and was already going to change their name again and just move everyone over to the new company, just like they've done repeatedly. This is a pattern that has been going on for a very long time. And anyone who doesn't believe it just has their eyes closed. Now we've got so much evidence out there, you just have to look at it. I could spend 5 hours straight going over all that with you. I've looked over a lot of these pages of evidence, thousands of pages. I'll bring it all to anyone that's a decision maker. I will bring it to you and show you. We have to stop closing our eyes to the evidence that's right in front of our face. We have to. But
absolutely fascinating, Mark. Thank you very much. We've got another subject matter expert here with us, Perre. And yes, Perre. Thank you. Clay, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Go for it. Introduce yourself briefly and tell us what you got.
Yeah, well, I'm Clay Perre. I'm from Huntsville, Alabama. Um, I'm 20 years in the cybersecurity field. The most important thing for this audience to know is that I worked in several voting system test labs, testing all these voting systems. And the point I want to make tonight is that I don't care which vendor you're using, because I've tested over 7 of them. The federal certification is a joke when you compare it to any other testing or certification standard that's out there. There's not a retail store that deals with credit card information that would go to such low standards and to the way these testing systems are checked. And a couple of things on the vulnerabilities I wanted to point it out is the stuff that you've heard Colonel Sean Smith speak about, that Mark's spoken about. These vulnerabilities have been out there for years. I tested over a 9-year time span from 2008 to 2017. And the reason I stopped testing, because it was just a part-time job, and I could hack into the systems. If I got in one way, they would say, well, don't do that test again, even though you should retest to make sure that the vulnerability was taken care of, right? They never did that. I got tired because it turned into a rubber stamping thing. Now, in 2020, Alabama formed up a case, and I wanted to get involved with it. I did. I ended up in federal court. But the thing that I got to do was read all the forensic reports, all these cases, and read the evidence that was found during investigations and the findings. Like when Mark says he found a vulnerability in 2020, that was from 2014. I can confirm it. I saw it in the test labs that year, and it has not been addressed. And so there's a big sham that goes on to every state and county with these systems, with these what's called engineering change orders, right? Where they say they're updating the system and they're managing them, right? They're applying fixes that they need to do to keep the integrity of the system. They're not doing that. These are poorly worded change management pieces of paper, and they don't get into the detail they should be. They're never questioned. I know I've said on the Alabama election board, because it's a public meeting, I've sat in and watched several other ones and been sent videos from other states. The vendors are not asked the appropriate questions that any IT professional would get quizzed on before he makes an adjustment to a system within any organization. And I don't care if that's a government organization, a company, or any private firm like that. And these systems are just highly flawed. And the one thing, even though the Supreme Court didn't read it and deal with it, is the fact that the Mesa County, Colorado system, a Dominion system, shares the same egregious vulnerability that I've seen in 5 other states. Mark Cook just showed you how he got into the system and flipped them. I dealt with just the databases, restored them from backup, and found the secret encryption keys. And gentlemen, what I want you to know with that is with those keys, you will never be able to trust that system. You don't know what's fraudulent and what's not, because it can be forged from the communications down to the encryptions. I've decrypted the machine behavioral settings so I can basically configure a tabulator to do whatever I want, re-encrypt it, and put it on that system, and nobody would be the wiser. The system would trust it, and it would function, but it would function as the way Clay wants it to function. And while we're leading from that section of whether you detect it or not, here's what every county that uses them ought to be asked and ought to provide their residents. Do you perform a trusted build? Is it to the images, right? Are the hash files complete? And by complete, I don't mean the handful of files that the vendor says to check, because as somebody who's played the bad guy. I'm a professional hacker, right? I've played the bad guy for an agency within the United States Department of Defense, right? You can hide your code anywhere. So you have to check every file when you talk about file integrity. These trusted builds that I don't care whether it's Dominion or ES&S or whoever, they use these self-made scripts to check hashes. The Secretary of State of Texas proved that system flawed because they forgot to do the compare file. If you compare hashes from a system to non-existent hashes and the test tells you they're good, that's a major issue. And the sad thing is at least they perform that test. I've asked several probate judges in counties here in Alabama, and the thing with that is the probate judge in the counties in Alabama are the lead election official. They don't even know what the trusted build process is. They don't know how to perform the test. And so these are just the issues you face, because without that, that is the only integrity test that the vendors offer. It's poorly designed at that, but it's not even being done. And with the security flaws in the Dominion system, there is no way that you can trust that system, whether you say it's intentional or just pure stupidity in design. It's the point is the system cannot be trusted. These machines are failing the citizens. And I'm saying that as somebody who's tested over 7 vendors in a 9-year period. So I do know these systems. And there's no way they would be designed and be as complicated as that. I've had database experts here within this state volunteer and give their time and examine some of the databases and the structures of them. They no way in any way, shape, or form function or are built or perform like any of the databases that you would see in a financial institution, as one of the ladies who has assisted me does, right? Or any other businesses or any other government agency. They're highly flawed. They do not log their events. The machines cannot be trusted. And I'm saying that as somebody who's tested them and seen them and got into every one of them. And the only way you're going to beat it is to go back to your decentralized precincts and allow hand-marked ballots to be hand-counted. And it can be done.
From one of the citizens?
Say again?
A question from a citizen that's online?
Yes.
And Jordan Hedberg, are you there? Do you have a question for Clay? Jordan, we have you on the screen that you were interested in having a question or making a comment. Who's next there, Kevin? I don't see.
All right. If there's not a question, if I may, I did see somebody who posted a comment, which is another thing, as I've looked at some of the Colorado systems and looked at the law, and they posted about Colorado election systems only have to meet the 2002 FEC standards, right? And they mentioned the fact about the iPhone being invented in 2010. What I want to point out to everyone that's on this call is that, yes, Colorado election systems have to meet that 2002 FEC standard, but your Colorado law also states that your voting system components that deal with people with disabilities has to meet the EAC requirements and follow all the HAVA Act. So now you've got 2 distinct requirements. Which one trumps the other one? Which requirement, if there's a conflict within those standards, it has the force to overrule the other one? That's an issue within Colorado law that needs to be addressed. And this is just my observation, because if you have an ICX, a ballot marking device that's supposed to assist people with disabilities, right? And you're saying it follows this requirement standard, yet this component still connect to the rest of the election system that has a different set of standards. that's an issue. That's an issue from a systems testing and certification perspective, let alone an issue within your law saying, because which standard do you address? And this is just one of the things that I've seen, heck, within my own state. And for the record, I've currently have helped and assisted over 21 states, because currently I'm still getting stuff as we speak from Georgia, and I was just with Kansas. Because if citizens have questions about the technology, that's the one thing that I myself personally do. Because again, 9 years.
Thank you very
much.
Yeah. Citizens here, I do have one that has a question. Could you come forward, sir, and tell us your name and then ask your question.
Howdy, Gregory Heine. Moved here in 2019 with my wife Debbie. We were in Illinois, so in the 2016 federal election, my signature, which is similar to what you have here, did not match because it was my 18-year-old signature. First time I'd ever been questioned about it. So here's my driver's license. Don't show me that, how dare you? Made a big deal out of it and very loud about it. We're going to hold your ballot and we'll send you something in the mail to prove who you are. In about 2 weeks, I get a letter from the State of Illinois Election Commission. And guess what I had to do to prove who I was? I photocopied my driver's license front and back. And then I had to write a personal note saying, under threat of law, this is who I promised to be, and I'm on that driver's license. And then I mailed it back. So since then, we've been here since 2019. Every state and federal election for Illinois, my wife and I both get mail-in ballots from Illinois. I have been shredding them and not sending them back. But when I left, I also worked for the post office for 10 years in Illinois.
Let me say real quick about that. How do you know someone's not voting for you? Because here's what I've seen happen. Citizens are coming to me, telling me they moved from another state and they still get a ballot from the original state they moved from, even though they're voting in the new state. And then they find out someone voted for them in the old state. And here's why that would work as a bad guy, because if I was a bad guy, would do everything I could to keep everything in the voter registration databases. Even if someone moves, I'd make all these requirements. No, you must keep it in for 24 months. And the reason I would want to do that is because those turn into low propensity voters, meaning that person that just moved out of the state probably isn't going to vote in this state anymore. So that would be a great record to eject the ballot against. They are so smart, and I would look into that. I would try. And here's the problem, though. If you ask them, did I vote in that election? They still have to just look at this database and trust the information from the report from the database. If I'm a bad guy and I have control of the database, all I'm going to do is just change the database so the report doesn't show that you voted, even though you did. That's the problem. The whole thing is out of our control. We have been chumps. We as a country, citizens, commissioners, elected officials, all of us, huge chumps, and we have to stop it.
And briefly, I worked for the post office for a federal institution, a processing center in Peoria, Illinois, 125,000 population. So we had ballot mail that was saran wrapped with a slip of paper saying ballot mail. I don't know what the chain of custody was with that. Pallets that you had to lift with a fork truck were parked outside a supervisor's office. I'm not saying anything was wrong.
But you don't know.
You don't know what was the chain of custody, and therefore when those were sent somewhere, were they counted by a machine and et cetera, et cetera.
It's all there, and that, talk about time and space. Mail-in ballots adds incredible time and space between everything. And speaking about pallets of ballots, the guy we heard about that was driving pallets in a truck across state lines, that everyone go, no, they're not real. I shook that guy's hand when I was in DC, so I can tell you it's very real. And I, myself, with my own eyes, saw a pallet of ballots that showed up after an election in Sacramento County, California, sitting in the ballot storage room, still on the ballot jack. Okay, I got all the, I could spend 20 hours with you and go over everything with you, and by the end, you'd say, oh my gosh, we have a massive problem. That's why people have to look at this, and I will, I'll take the time. People have to look at it. We have to pull our heads out of our behinds at some point, or we are going to lose our country, period.
Mark, thank you so much. Hadn't this been fascinating? Let's give our subject matter experts a hand.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna comments. I want to make sure, is there any Colorado commissioners still online that wanted to make a statement from Colorado? If we had 8 or 9 to start with, maybe a couple. Is anybody on there? Everybody gone?
Hand up there.
Is there a hand up?
No hands up.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so we're gonna wrap this up. A couple other things. I want to ask Kevin and Lucas what they want to say. Let me point out before we leave, we need some help with the chairs. It was all volunteer. We all set it up earlier. So if anybody wants to stick around and help, that'd be great. First of all, and then secondly, I really appreciate it. This has been an attempt, as we pointed out in the front end, it's a data gathering meeting that we had. And what you presented offers a lot of other opportunities now to understand what other data we need. We need to understand how to do hand counts quickly. We understand the need to do the processes. We need to understand the procedures. We need to understand how to do some other things. So before we get together, my intent right now is with the data that I've seen, we know we've got to fix something. And the paper ballot is that, it was good back in the day. You still sign a check and that was good. Anyway, so with that, Kevin, have you got a couple words to close with and Lucas?
I would say I'd like to thank everybody that came. Thank all of those that stuck around till the end here. I appreciate that. We're here to garner information. We're trying to find out as much as we can so that we can make an informed decision moving forward. That being said, I would like to hold another meeting. I would like to hear the additional information that is out there as well, because we need to hear everything that we have so that we have all that in hand when we move forward. That's what I would say. But thank you all for being here. I appreciate that.
I'd like to just echo, just thank you for putting up for 3 hours. It was a long meeting. It got started a little late, but just thanks for hanging in there and listening. Talking to farmers across America, John Deere tried to shut down farmers being able to work on their tractors. So what did the state of Colorado do? They decentralized it and said, hey, all you farmers can work on your tractors. They have to make it available to you. Why can't we do it with our elections?
Amen.
So we need to think through this and strategically come up with a plan, a good plan. We need to get our clerk, we need to get our arms around our clerk and not in a loving way and help her and educate and assist her and support her through this.
Yeah.
And all the clerks have been lied to a lot through Colorado. We've all been lied to. We've all been told things that true or not true or manipulated. And it's going to take some fight through that. And it's going to take a lot of relationships. It's going to take a lot of discussions. It's going to take a lot of teamwork. So I just want to say thank you to all of you who've stuck through this, and for everything that we learned today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, and stay tuned. We're going to have another meeting once the experts come back again, and I really appreciate we talked nationwide today to think about what we've done, and thank you, everybody. Thanks for being on. Over and out.